I don't want to do this.
What? I thought you were looking forward to this episode.
I don't want to talk about this.
But you used to love the Thundercats. You actually watched it as a small child.
I know I like the heroes and I like the spaceships, but I don't want to... You know it's there. It's just a topic. It's got to be brought up at some point.
Oh, not this again.
There's a mummy in the show. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to have to say it. There's a mummy in the show. This is...
Babe, you
fucking horrifying.
You don't have to worry about mummies. It's okay. We don't live anywhere near Egypt. We live in LA. The worst we have here is the Egyptian theater. And there's no mummies there, I swear.
Do you think they have mummies there?
No, I just said they didn't. The worst they have is that awful Tom Cruise movie. Don't worry.
And the Scientology Center next door.
You just broke character.
No, I didn't.
Thundercats.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sadie Hawkins Pod.
Hello. What have you been doing lately? That's what we're asking this week on Sadie Hawkins Pod. No, we're talking about Lion-O.
That is the song that comes right after it, though. What are you looking for?
I forgot the Bluetooth speaker. Where is it? What'd you do with it?
Danny.
Why are you taking my Bluetooth speaker? Oh, it's underneath our copy of All Work and No Play.
That's right.
Which is a song, this song is on the demo, All Work and No Play, as well as Anatomy of Tongue in Cheek.
Yeah.
So, here it is. Here's the Bluetooth. We don't need it just yet, but I wanted to make sure I had it.
Top of the show business?
Yes, we have voicemails. Actually, I do need the Bluetooth right away. So here is one of the voicemails from David Ketch from going back to last week, referencing our episode from 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
My favorite Relient K podcast finally covered my favorite Relient K song. Sahara was the song that got me into Relient K. So after hearing this episode, it really put more insight into the song for me. I really like the song because of the poetry, but I also feel like after Jeff read off the song meanings, I feel like I can see both sides of what you guys are saying. Like, it is about a girl, but I also believe that the bridge is about him crying out to God as well, especially the part where he says, "I'm not alone. I'll be all right. Please take these bones and bring them back to life." I don't think he's talking to the girl during that part, but I don't know. That's just my interpretation.
I mean, yeah, I agree. Going back to Sahara, I guess part of what got my feathers in a ruffle, or what's a cat version of that, I don't know, with that guy on Song Meanings 2 weeks ago, was not that... yes, this song is about a breakup, and like almost all of Relient K's music, even the songs that aren't directly in reference to God or Christianity or faith or any of that, it still comes through a lens of that. That's like a major part of their life experience, of Matt Thiessen's life experience. So that always is going to flavor even the most secular song, like Collapsible Lung, right? Like all those worldly references in Collapsible Lung. I'm just saying this to get at Jessica. So what got me all worked up last week with that 2 weeks ago with that Song Meanings guy was not that I thought there's no God in this song or there's no Christ in Sahara. There certainly is. I agree with David here that actually that bridge probably is. April is rattling her bowl.
She always waits until
like a prisoner. Like a prisoner hitting her dish against the bars of her cell.
She always waits to eat right until we hit record. She's like, "Oh, you guys are in the kitchen? I should be eating too."
She stopped because I think we embarrassed her. So the bridge, yeah, I agree. That is definitely a faith-based bridge. She is most likely talking to God, especially the reference of bringing these bones back to life. And oh my gosh. Come here. What are you doing? What have you been doing lately?
She just scampered off. Poor April.
But it's the way in which the song meanings writer said, this isn't just about some girl.
Right.
But it was. But it's like not binary. It's not one or the other. Just like goes back to my Be My Escape thing, which I understand that is mostly leaning towards being about your relationship with Christ. But this Sahara, even more than that, it leans towards talking about the relationship with his fiance, but it absolutely also is talking about his relationship with Christ. Absolutely. That song meanings guy, though, he was like, this isn't just about chasing skirts. I'm like, it's not chasing skirts. It's his fiance, you rude, awful person. Like, he acted like it was just some, like, ugh.
They did, in fact, use the term chasing skirt.
It was
hilarious.
It's about a love of his life. It's, like, not about chasing skirts.
Yeah, and of course, it can definitely have more than one meaning.
Yeah. The jerk I'm talking about, if no one heard our Sahara episode, is the song meanings writer, not David Ketch, who has very good points here. I am not attacking David.
We do tend to attack our callers, though.
We do that. I just don't call them jerks.
It's a solid track record.
But yeah, I like the song. It's a song that the reason why I like Forget Not Slow Down, the first song Relient K song that I ever heard. Also, in the past episode, Danny mentions Homegrown and how they always blame the girl, but in the Actor Age album, there's at least 3 songs in a row where he's like, I regret doing this to you. So yeah, not every Homegrown song is about blaming the girl. And then I'll leave the voicemail with this is, Danny mentioned trying to be, a vegan or a vegetarian, but eating salmon probably just makes him an ovo-lacto-vegetarian, maybe. All right, I'll talk to you guys. I'll talk to you later. I'm not dead. I'm here. Hey. All right. Have a good one. Bye.
I don't know what ovo-lacto-vegetarian means. I'm good. I'm not gonna bother looking it up. I thought just pescatarian means you eat fish.
Yeah, but it means that you
eat fish and dairy
and eggs. Yeah.
And eggs. Oh, okay. All right. Well, what was the other thing you said here?
Or maybe that you don't eat dairy and eggs. I'm not sure.
Yeah, whatever. So Homegrown, yeah, I do remember, like, Last Night Regrets is a song off Actor Age, but go check out my appearance on the Zeitgeist Lab pod, because they mostly were focusing on the album Kings of Pop, and I did a deep dive preparing for my appearance on that podcast, listening to a lot of Homegrown, and Homegrown was a band that, because of their, especially in the late 90s, their close connections with MXPX and Blink-182, I was convinced that, like, oh, I must like Homegrown. And it was just one of those situations where it took me years, and I was like, wait, I tried to force myself to like Homegrown. I just realized I just don't really like them that much. But they do have a number of really misogynistic songs, but David's right. There is at least, he said 3, but yeah, Last Night Regrets is one.
You know what I like more than Kings of Pop?
That's not
Kings of Hollywood.
Yeah, Jessica's favorite song, MXPX song, is one of the most reviled MXPX songs.
Truly it is. I love Kings of Hollywood.
So we have one more voicemail from David.
One more thing, going back to the last Patreon episode that you guys talked about, the collapsible lung episode, I wanted to say I have been listening to the podcast. I just haven't been able to call in lately because I've been busy.
Well, what have you been doing lately?
Damn it, I wanted to say that.
Do you want to do it again and
no,
pretend
that's okay. No, because you see, here's the thing, Dan. If you beat me to something or have like a witty insight or a fun anecdote to share, I don't feel the need to bring you down and try and take credit for it or say that, well, you know, I'm the clever one in the family, so how did you come up with that?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't remember. I don't live in the past. And after that awkwardness, Google Voice decided to crash. Okay, hold on.
The album. Anyways, I wanted to say that Reliable J made a really good point about the album, and it kind of changed my mind about the album, but I still still don't, I guess, appreciate it as much.
You know, I felt really good about David Ketch's last call because he opened it up by saying that we were his favorite Relient K podcast. But in this voicemail, he called up and started talking about Reliable J. So I just don't really know.
What's the truth?
Yeah.
All he said was he listened to Reliable J.
I appreciate it more, just not enough, if that makes sense. Yeah, that was also me. Danny kept mentioning my name. Hi, I'm David Catch. That it was me that called in a year ago, or over a year ago at this point, where I was like, I'll listen to Don't Blink. And I liked it, but then I listened to the whole album. Then I was like, what happened? What is this? So yeah, you were right, Danny. All right, bye.
Yeah, so on our Patreon episode, which you can go to patreon.com/SadieHawkinspod, we listened to all of those collapsible lung YouTube reviews, and I was like, someone called us up early in the podcast and said they listened to Don't Blink, and then when they were psyched for the whole album, and then when they got the whole album, they were super disappointed. It was David Ketch the whole time. I couldn't remember because, like, we've been doing this for years now. We're coming up on our 5th anniversary.
So are we going to go back and catch up on any old voicemails, or are we just going to go ahead and start talking about the song?
Let's just go ahead and start talking about the song, because we do have a guest today.
That's right.
And our guest is our friend Matt, who we met at our film school. His name is Matt Kiernan, and he's online as Heavy Ordnance Studio. For anyone who listens to Magnified Pod, he's done the artwork for Magnified Pod for the last 2 seasons, which I connected them because our friend Matt isn't, like, Christian or anything. I feel like when we've talked about it, he certainly said, like, he has no affinity or connection to, like, Christian rock and youth group culture or anything. That's not a part of his story or life.
We'll ask him about it.
We'll ask him about it. But we're going to talk about our review, our thoughts on, like, the specific Thundercats episodes we all watched later. The reason he's going to be on the episode, he'll spoil this now, is because his wedding gift to us was these, like, giant Thundercats decals that he made.
Like, for your car or something.
Right. Because we got married only a couple years after college, and, like, all our friends were, you know, and we were still getting on our feet, certainly, which you can hear about in our April episode, our episode about our dog, April. Not only did we talk about the history of, this is a Patreon episode, not only did we talk about the history of adopting and meeting our dog, April, who's now our podcast engineer, but we had to, like, kind of go through the history of why we moved so much in the first few years of our marriage to end up rescuing her. So you can hear all about, like, how we kind of moved around and why we got married in New Jersey when we have no other real connection to that state, all that. But anyway, all our friends were still getting on their feet, so we tried to make sure, like,
everybody had to travel to New Jersey in the middle of winter.
So none of our college friends were we, like, anticipating, and we were trying to make sure we had cheap things on our lists, on our registries.
Right.
But then Matt gave us these Thundercats decals, and I never used them. They're still out there somewhere, because not only is Matt a great artist, but he's also, like, really good at some sort of printing. I don't know. We can ask him about it, but he's worked for, like, printing companies.
Yeah, he's a super talented dude.
And we always, out of all of our friends from school, sorry, I'm just waxing about Matt right now. Out of all of our friends from school, he's constantly, like, been in some of the places we moved as well.
Yeah.
Like, when we left Florida, we didn't see him for a while, and then when he moved away, and when we moved back to Florida, he also moved back to Florida, so we got to see him for a little bit there, and then he moved to LA, and then we moved to LA. So he's, like, this one friend that we've not, there's lots of people we haven't lost touch with, but for some reason Matt has stayed, like, physically in our lives. So anyway, Thundercats.
Staple. Good
He's
friend.
a staple, yeah. That's why we're talking about staples this week. So what have you been doing lately? I brought up because this has that great lead-in to what have you been doing lately at the end.
Yeah.
As the song ends, it goes da-da-da-da-da-da. What have you been doing? Like, it's got a great transition, but we've already done what have you been doing lately. And it's funny where we dissected that and we're like, this song is so problematic. This song feels like what have you been doing lately following Thundercats music-wise, is such a great transition, because Thundercats, you've got this, like, early style pop-punk jam about something nostalgic and fun, like a cartoon show specifically, and then
It's a super goofy theme.
Yeah.
Into, like, a very judgmental theme.
But forgetting that, because when we did What Have You Been Doing Lately, you mentioned that, like, you didn't really dig deep into the lyrics before we did this podcast, right? So when you listen to a fun pop-punk song about a goofy cartoon show, and it goes into that ska-esque opening of What Have You Been Doing Lately, and then it cuts in, and then it goes into more pop rock and pop-punk, you're like, yeah, this is a great 2-song set right here. But then you dig into the lyrics of What Have You Been Doing Lately, and it's like, this is nothing compared to I Am Lion-O. Judging people because they had beer in college. Listen to our What Have You Been Doing Lately episode. When we finish this podcast, we should put all the episodes in
oh my gosh, in order.
In discography order, and then we should listen to them all and make that the second season of our podcast where we review each episode. No, that's not really happening.
Yeah, classic early Relient K 80s references, of which the first, 3 albums are chock full of. And like you mentioned a minute ago, this is a holdover from the demo, All Work and No Play. It's track 2. And then they re-recorded it for Anatomy. I have to say, demo version over Anatomy version.
Oh, really?
Forget about gold versus non-gold. All Work and No Play is where it's at.
Oh, wow.
I like the mix better. I love the cringy Meow Mix intro thing. Mm-hmm. It's like they're doing the sarcastic, snotty punk thing, but like the most vanilla, good Christian boy version of it. That sloppy guitar, outstanding. And of course, British Thiessen is out in full effect, which I just picture like a young Mac Thiessen with a fake lip ring shaking his shaggy hair into his eyes as he shouts into the microphone for some reason. I don't know why, I just do. I had a fake lip ring, because who can commit to being a full-time punk? I was a good girl, but watch out, because that occasional fake lip ring let you know that I was a little edgy. Do you remember that?
I don't remember you wearing a fake ring.
I feel like I mostly just did it for pictures. It was definitely like a MySpace profile picture type thing.
When I used to stalk your MySpace before we dated, I don't remember that.
Oh, we should ask Matt if he remembers that. Matt's from MySpace days.
Yeah. When you said cringy, I tried to make in the background there while you're still talking. I was like cringy, like Cringer, and I'm like, wait a second, nope, that's the He-Man cat. So
it was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
So Snarf, you remember Snarf, right? We watched the episode. Snarf is the little cowardly cat that's not bipedal.
He's the cat that the cats own. Like the space cats have their own cat, and that cat has a tail, and the main space cats don't.
Yeah, but he can talk, so he's sentient. He's not a pet, and he's not a slave.
Excuse me, pets are sentient.
Right, he's sentient and capable of language. He can be communicated with fully. He doesn't. His brain.
Regular dogs and cats are capable of language.
Well, no, but I understand what you're saying.
Are we just getting into it? We're just jumping right in.
No, I was just trying to point out the fact that I mix up this character. Look at my phone, Jess. Yeah. This character, which is Snarf from Thundercats, and I mix him up all the time with this one, Cringer, from He-Man.
I see.
They're both scaredy cats, unintended. They're both like, because Cringer is He-Man, Adam He-Man's green cat who's a scaredy cat like a Scooby-Doo, but then he can transform into Battle Cat.
His name is Adam He-Man?
Well, I believe He-Man's actual name is Adam.
Oh, okay.
His name isn't Adam He-Man, though. Not like Mario in the Mario movie. Anyway.
I don't know. I have to ask, because this is another reason why we're having Matt on later, is because I was just too young for Thundercats. It started before I was born, so I never really, watched it, or I'm sure they played it in syndication, but I never saw it.
Right.
So I don't have a lot to say about the show. I mean, now I do, because we watched the first 3 episodes
of the original.
And
Jessica watched most of the 2011 reboot first episode with me.
but I wanted you to have someone to talk to and like nerd out about Thundercats
specific
with.
stuff. So we'll talk more about Thundercats. You know, we'll have to dip into it here and there as we talk more about the song, but we'll focus more Thundercats talk for later.
So a note, the lyrics are a little bit different between the demo and anatomy versions because, like I mentioned before, the demo version starts off with a cover of the Meow Mix jingle.
Right, and I have to talk about that as long as, I guess we're going kind of chronologically. So here is, I already did an Instagram story about this, but here is the opening of the all work and no play version. Okay, so I played it up to the lyrics, so then you hear him begin the Meow Mix jingle there. But that specific, like, emo diaries-esque guitar work in which they kind of, like, put the Meow Mix lyrics into. I was talking to Jessica about this earlier, and she couldn't remember this, but I was like, well, save it for the podcast. Tell me if you remember this song from the late 90s. Anything yet?
No.
You don't remember it? I'm not expecting that you have to, but
Maybe when the...
man, this is more butt rock than I remember. I remember this being sort of like not emo at all, but like emo in the way of like Everlong by Foo Fighters kind of being like a modern rock song that was taking cues from the emo that was happening.
Maybe when it kicks in.
It's 4 minutes long. Let me skip ahead a little bit. So this is the Verve Pipe with their song The Freshman from their album Villains. You gotta find that. Here we go. Man, the Verve Pipe. I hope Verve Pipe is not a litigious band. We gotta play so much to jog your memory. This is from like 97, so... And it's like... Oh, here we go. Jessica's shaking her head. So basically, I was just going through the song to try to see if Jessica remembers it. It was a modern rock radio staple from like 97 to 99. It was like constantly on the rock radio. I think they're a one-hit wonder. Well, I'm looking at this.
Is this the Bittersweet Symphony Band or no?
No, there were two bands with the word Verve in their name.
Okay.
Like mysteriously, the other one was just the Verve, and they did
see.
Bittersweet Symphony.
Gotcha.
This was the Verve Pipe. And they have millions of listens on all of their other songs, so I guess they're pretty big. But I think in terms of radio play, they're probably technically a one-hit wonder. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's like when people say Smash Mouth is a one-hit wonder, but really they were like a three-hit wonder. So all I'm saying is...
They were a three-hit wonder in that two of those songs were covers.
No, one of them was
hits.
Walking on the Sun. There was Walking on the Sun. Now we gotta have a Smash Mouth debate. We're not even through the Verve Pipe talk yet.
One was a Monkey Songs cover, and that was...
Oh, yeah. Cover. So many of... Oh, yeah. First of all, they were like a 5-hit wonder, and 3 of them were covers.
There you go.
I was thinking of Walking on the Sun, because being someone who remembers Verve Pipe on the radio, being an ex-ennial, I remember Walking on the Sun being a huge song long before All-Star was a glimmer in their eye.
Gotcha.
And then All-Star comes out. But I think even before All-Star came out, there was the cover of Why Can't We Be Friends Or, yeah, is it Why Can't We Be Friends? And that was on the radio a bunch. And Can't Get Enough of You, Baby. That's a cover
Yeah.
that was on the radio a whole lot.
I remember
And
that
I'm a
one,
Believer
yeah.
was also on
Yep.
the radio a whole lot. So they're a 5-hit wonder. I mean, that ska cover of...
Well, Shrek keeps them relevant, you know.
Exactly. That ska cover that they did of Why Can't We Be Friends, maybe that's not as big as I think it was, but I remember hearing it on the radio a bunch.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Anyway,
I think they threw that in a soundtrack. Remember when Smash Mouth was like a plot point in Rat Race?
yes, remember, I watched that movie every month.
I used to love Rat Race as a kid.
man,
I
yeah.
had a used Blockbuster VHS copy of Rat Race. I loved it that much.
You know what's kind of amazing, and I just connected this, probably the two biggest movie-used bands of the late 90s were Baha Men and Smash Mouth. And they're both used in Rat Race. Smash Mouth actually appears as themselves. Baha Men does not. But Who Let the Dogs Out is in the moment where they're all not believing that they could win the $1 million or whatever. And they're like, huh, this is crazy, huh? Yeah. And they're all staring at each other. And then, like, comedic cut to them all running and pushing each other over, played to Who Let the Dogs Out.
They're also both very like ingrained in Radio Disney bands, so I definitely heard a lot of those two bands during like the early 2000s when I listened to Radio Disney.
Right. So all I'm saying is, the thing is, the EP, it's not the EP, but the demo, All Work and No Play, is 98. Verve Pipe, I'm pretty sure, is 97. And so I don't know if
It's like current.
Yeah, if it's current. So I think this was a pretty influential rock song for that time. This was kind of showing ways rock could start to go. Like I said, Verve Pipe is not an emo band by any stretch of the imagination, but like Everlong, it was like these rock bands that had these things that emo could also do, and that kind of maybe helped guide, push emo bands towards radio success later on. But, you know, just comparing it one more time, this is the opening of Freshman, and then this is the opening of I Am Lion-O on the demo. It's not exactly the same, but it reminds me, it feels like a similar chord progression. Never took advice, and now I'm guilt-stricken, sobbing with my head on the floor. Fell through the rice. I don't know what those lyrics are. And so let's just hear the rest of this intro part. I skipped ahead 30 seconds. Man, it's a long intro on the demo. They really tightened it up. Even though you like this version better, they really tightened it up for the Anatomy version.
Yeah.
Wow, we're almost a minute in for this joke.
I'm a Thundercat too.
Yeah.
It's just so much more rockin'. It's so
it's
much
amazing.
better. I love the sloppy guitars. Like, it's so good.
It reminds me of, what's that? Oh, man. I don't have an encyclopedic brain in that way where I can just call up the names of things right away. It's just something, it's a limit I have. So I'm typing in All Work and No Play, B-Rad. It reminds me of the sounds of B-Rad, which
Yeah, for sure.
was like their most skate punky song we had like ever heard, even among all of their first 3 Gears albums.
You might want to silence your phone since we just heard it the lock click as you
Right,
closed
and
your
if someone
screen.
sends me a text, it's going to be like, ding! Yeah, so, yeah, it's cool. It's really good. I really like this version of the cover. And, I really like this version of the song. I'm kind of shocked to hear you say that you like this one better. I didn't think of it that way, but that's funny. And they would continuously do the Meow Mix thing live all the time, even though All Work and No Play wasn't available openly, you know, once Dave joined the band. They would still play this song all throughout, like, the Electric Youth Tour and the Back to the Future times, and I think they played it, you know, right up until pretty much when they started to mature more. But they would do the Meow Mix stuff a bunch. They wouldn't do it every time, but I do remember hearing them play this song a bunch in those first couple of years, going to a lot of Relient K shows.
Yeah, I mean, overall, this was never like a favorite or like a go-to for me because I didn't have that like nostalgic connection. And so I guess when I just heard the like what to me was the fresher sound of the demo, that's why I was like, oh, I like this. This is more rockin'. I'm more into this. Like this would fall into that category of generally, but not always a skip song on Anatomy for me.
Gotcha.
And the intro, Lion Wilson, was definitely a skip.
Such a shame. It's such a cute little
Like,
funny
I
thing.
know, it's got
They
that
love
nice
the
Beach
Boys.
Boysy thing. Yeah, it's got this nice Beach Boysy like
And it's a
harmonies
classic
kinda
pun,
going.
Thiessen pun name to the song, Lion Wilson.
It's just a little too acapella-y for me.
But it's not, we talked about this off mic, it's not a cappella because there's instrumentation.
It's acapella-y. It's not my jam. Much like That's My Jam, which is also
Not your
my
jam.
jam.
Man, the music app built into the iPhone is slow. And we've got brand
Yeah,
new
it
phones.
is.
It's like you click an album and it's like, thinking. I'm like, this is the music on the phone.
It just doesn't like you because you're not paying for Apple Music. It's because you're a Spotify
yeah,
user.
it's like okay, looking on Google, looking on Apple Music. It's like, what? You don't have Apple Music? Well, then I'll think about it. I'll think about finding the music that's on your own phone. So here's Lion Wilson. So I guess it is sort of a cappella.
Sleigh bells.
There's sleigh bells. Is there anything else going on in this then?
No, it's just the sleigh bells, I think.
And I wonder if this is
It just sounds like depressing Christmas music. I don't know. Like, you're the one. I love Christmas music. You're the one who finds Christmas music depressing. But something about this, the acapella and the sleigh bells, I don't know.
I find Christmas music depressing because of the themes. Not, the wistful, wintry themes when they're not simply, when it's like, standing by the fire and my toes are freezing and I'm gonna die soon, but Jesus loves me. It's like, I don't like that Christmas music. But this is like it's a Beach Boys pastiche leading into a song about the Thundercats.
You do know that there are more Christmas songs than just Christmas shoes out there, right?
What? I thought that's what invented the genre.
Dan, no, there's others. We've covered a few on this show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought those were about Arbor Day or something. Anyway, I had a really important point to mention. Lion Wilson, Lion-O.
Lion Wilson, Brian Wilson. I get it. It's cute.
Yeah, it's like a pun. Oh, I remember now. I feel like the Lion Wilson interlude lead-in intro thing that they did on this album.
Sorry, I took a large gulp, and I apologize. I was doing that a lot last week. Danny reprimanded me for it. I apologize.
Jessica we haven't talked about it yet, but Jessica had, do you want to talk about this?
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Jessica had ear surgery, like actually internal inside her ear, corrective ear surgery. Well, I won't go into the details, but basically they needed to go in there and correct stuff because stuff had been like messed up and all these things. No details, but they actually cut her ear open from the back and went in and corrected like everything in there.
Yeah, I have I look pretty Frankenstein-y now because I have this all these stitches, this big jagged stitches thing going from the top of my ear all the way down to the bottom, where my earlobe is where it stops against the skull.
So I think because of the surgery, it kind of affects her swallowing, and so she was just constantly. There were 20 of them, and I was I was cutting them all out.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's not your fault.
Yeah, it's funny because I realized that we took a break. We took that week off,
right.
The week before it was going to happen, and I was like, man, we really should have saved that week off for the week of the surgery. Damn you, dust mites.
I know. So, anyway, the Lion Wilson track, I think, is a redemption for Relient K in the fact that they had the Ed Sullivan track leading into Nancy Drew that they cut. Because, by the way, we get so many DMs of like firsthand info now, and we haven't shared all of them. We knew something before the big announcement about March. We kind of were. I don't, but it's like everyone tells us stuff, and some people are like, yeah, you can talk about this, but don't say it was me. And other people are like, please don't talk about it, so we don't talk about it. So it's like, well, everyone's coming to us with all the, you know what, we're very good Relient K secret keepers. That's what I think everyone needs to know. But this one was...
I don't even know what you're about to say. Yeah, I'm sitting here on the edge of my seat.
I didn't mention this one, but someone who just started listening to the podcast, and this one isn't like personally tied to Relient K, but someone who just started listening to the podcast, heard our Nancy Drew episode, sent us a message to say they had talked to Thiessen firsthand because they brought their like promo copy of the self-titled to be signed, like their super rare promo copy, and asked like what happened with the Ed Sullivan track that led in Nancy Drew, and he said cease and desist letter. Like they they didn't get unlike MGK, who goes and rips off, deliberately interpolates Be My Escape and then goes off and gets the permission right away and gets it and gives Thiessen a credit, and I assume probably money involved. They did the Ed Sullivan thing, and then I guess they went off. Now I'm extrapolating from the information we got, but then they did the Ed Sullivan thing and they went off and didn't get the permission or got a cease and desist, or maybe it somehow hit the to the publishers of the Ed Sullivan song of those musicians.
Things get around. Things just get around. Yeah.
So they weren't. So that's why they cut it out. So I feel like the Lion Wilson thing. This feels very in step with that. Like the fact that the Ed Sullivan track was kind of a cappella-ish because it was based on a musical, Bye Bye Birdie. So and this is an original composition done in a vocal styling and everything. So I feel like they were trying to redo that idea that they legally couldn't do on the previous album.
Interesting.
And I think the listener who gave us this information did say not to mention their name, maybe because they have such rare Relient K stuff, but maybe they didn't say that. If we could have mentioned their name, I'll mention it next week. Are there any more cat songs that we're doing next week?
We already did It's Always Winter But Never Christmas and Like a Lion, right?
Yes, I think we did.
Yeah, I think we did.
So I do love this song because I feel like it is very much a part of a trope in pop punk music, or in sort of like nerdier pop rock and sort of music that's meant to appeal to like middle schoolers and high schoolers, to do like pop culture references songs specifically.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't think of a lot of good examples right now. Like maybe I can think of like A New Hope by Blink-182, which isn't really a Star Wars song in much as it's like another like lovelorn song, and he's just using Princess Leia as kind of a metaphor for a girl that he likes, with a few other Star Wars references. But like that is very much like a 90s pop punk thing to like figure out something that's kind of cool, but like not super cool, like not super well known. Like if you can find the thing that's like a cool reference to nostalgia but not overplayed,
right,
then that's like the perfect mix. Almost like picking covers. Like you don't want to do the most obvious cover unless the joke is it's the most obvious cover. You got to kind of find that ironic, literal balance of finding like cool covers to do.
Yeah, but thanks to current internet culture, nothing is sacred anymore.
No.
Your special thing isn't that special.
There's probably nothing that could have a song written about it that wouldn't massively get attention from that fan base and be like, you got the reference to...
Your special thing is still special. It's just the thing that you thought was special to you is actually special to way more people than you thought.
Right. And going back to the demo, because I was about to say, like, if you release this song today and, like, fans of Thundercats would appear online and be like, this song got this reference wrong. There is a lyrical difference in the two tracks where when Thiessen mentions Chitara, he was like, my favorite feline is the one that wore leopard skins, is what he says in All Work and No Play, but it's the one who wore cheetah skins on the Anatomy of Tongue-in-Cheek album, which I'm wondering what the deal is there, because her name is Chitara and her superpower is that she runs fast in Thundercats. So you'd think, yeah, she's wearing cheetah skins, but I'm like, is she like legally wearing leopard skins? Like, because I doubt that the designers of Thundercats cared that much to be like, they're aliens. We didn't talk about Thundercats that much yet, but they're essentially, and we'll talk about it more later.
We're going to have to compare the difference between a cheetah and a lion and which one Chitara has, but also how furry of Tison.
Exactly.
The Thundercat he likes the most is Chitara.
It's the one female one. No, absolutely, Chitara was an awakening for many boys and girls into their furrydom. Like, I guarantee it. It's funny because both the original Chitara from the 80s and the 2011 one, they both show a lot of fur, not skin, but they both have very tight, like, provocative outfits for their respective
furry cleavage
shows. Yeah, exactly. And I'm wondering, the show, which we haven't fully talked about yet, we'll go into detail later, but the show, for anyone who hasn't ever followed up on it, Thundercats are basically this race of cat aliens. Really, they're aliens because they fly through space, and the first episode of the original show opens where they've already escaped their planet and it explodes. There's a lot of Star Wars ripping off in the original Thundercats, but they're cat aliens. And they have to go find a new planet to colonize, and on their way, the would-be king is Lion-O, and he's a kid, and he's just a little kid, and he's like, you'll be king of the new planet someday, of our new planet. But then they go into hypersleep, and there's a hypersleep accident, and he immediately grows up into an adult, but he's still a kid. So the show becomes him trying to, like, be an adult, where suddenly he's physically an adult, and he has to be the king of the new Lion-O, of the new Thundercats, Chitarians, I think they're called. I think their race are called Chitarians.
Still better character design than Cats 2019.
Exactly.
Even if Lion-O looks like Trump.
I feel like I'd seen that as like a meme here
I'm
and there.
sure, probably.
Not all the time, though, because
if you haven't seen Thundercats, Lion-O, the main character, who's, my golly, he's so insufferable. Anyways, he has things. One, he's insufferable,
that's
too.
his character arc.
I know. He has an orange face with this, like, white eye cutout thing.
Right. So I was a big Thundercats fan as a kid. This was probably my first big cartoon, so it meant a lot to me that Relient K did a song about Thundercats. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. But it also wasn't like my strongest nostalgia. Like, that really became Ninja Turtles. Like, I would compare being into Thundercats with, like, in a similar way, when I was a kid, I was into Atari for a hot second, and then the Nintendo came out, and I never looked back at the Atari, and I don't have any nostalgia for the Atari, although I did play it for a year or two when I was a kid. Nintendo has all my nostalgia. Same way, Thundercats, I certainly have some nostalgia, but Ninja Turtles, I actually remember multiple episodes of Ninja Turtles. I really only remember the first few episodes of Thundercats, because we had the cassette tape that collected the first 4 or 5 episodes. So I definitely have a stronger connection to those first few episodes. And I have a little Danny story. Not a Danny story in the sense of a story that has no ending. This actually has an ending. But a little Danny story, like a story about little Danny being a goober.
I'll allow it.
So my cousin had a birthday party. And this has to be like, who knows, like 88 or something. We're still very young. And we get the pilot cassette of Thundercats for him as his gift from us, because I love Thundercats. And it's like, oh, for my cousin, we should get the Thundercats tape. I think I actually suggested it to my mom, and she's like, okay, good idea. We get the Thundercats cassette, the same one that I had and watched all the time, and I knew it was there on the gift table, wrapped up, and I just wanted to watch it so bad. I was at the party. I was at this birthday party, not enjoying the birthday party, because I'm like, there's a movie cassette right there, and it's Thundercats, and we could be watching it. So I go to my aunt, and I say, I actually don't remember this aunt's name because it's a side of the it's a part of the family we don't talk to that much anymore. But I go to my aunt and I say, if we have, if my cousin gets a movie as a gift, can we watch it? And she's like, oh, sure, okay. She doesn't put any context or understanding of what I'm saying. I'm being sly, like, if he's got a movie for a gift, can we watch it? And she's like, oh, sure. And then when she opens the gift from me, she bursts out when we all come together, because it's one of those everyone comes together and watches the kid open the gifts. When my gift was unwrapped and it was a Thundercats cassette, she burst out laughing, and everyone was like, "What?" Because she's like, "Oh, he just wants to watch the tape that he gave him." So yeah, Thundercats nostalgia for me. Pretty strong for those first few episodes, but also like Ninja Turtles, while that's definitely a toy show, definitely just made to sell toys, all shows are, but like in the 80s, like Thundercats is more of what I would call a battle set TV show, where they're really just enacting stories that
can sell toys.
Well, yeah, but there's like a distinction I'm trying to like voice here. Lots of cartoons sell toys. Most cartoons sell toys, but the writers, especially in later the 90s and on, the television writers actually write stories, and they'll work those like toy items into the stories. But Thundercats, the majority of those shows are like battle set stories. They're the kind of limited stories that a kid would come up with their battle set. You know what I mean? Like, story wasn't super strong in most episodes of Thundercats. It's like, we're gonna storm this place with the battle cruiser or whatever, and it's like, that's what a kid does with their toys.
Right.
So I remember having that distinct thought because I actually, as a kid, I wanted like complex or more complex. I wanted stories I couldn't think of. But I remember when I was a kid, I would watch Thundercats and sometimes feel like I could have come up with this story with my toys.
Yeah, they're also very toy-like in their design. They're like the character design. They're like they're like very smooth, like genitalist hips that connect to their legs.
Yeah, in the first episode, they're all naked because they're cat aliens and they've come from a paradise planet that they've lost, and they never had to wear clothes. And they're also
except
cats.
the Obi-Wan cat,
right? Because he's the last member of the government, and they used to wear. I guess they wore like special robes or whatever. But all these 5, and everyone's taking it super well. That everyone they know just blew
really
up. They're taking it super well. It's almost like the end of Last Jedi, where like literally the entire Resistance has just been slaughtered, and everyone's hugging each other at the end of Last Jedi. Like, oh, glad we made it, and like, fuck, everybody else is dead. But is similar. Yeah, they open the television show with them all naked, and then they get their clothes pretty quickly after because Jaga, the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the series, literally, because he dies in the first episode and is a ghost for the rest of the series, he says like, you're all going to need clothes now because you're going to more difficult planets than you've ever lived on, and he gives everyone clothes and weapons like magically. But when you see them all naked, they're cats. It's not a big deal. They're just covered in fur. They don't have genitals, and they have those kind of like articulated seams in their legs like toys.
Like no being has those.
Right.
Also, what's up with their ears? Are they alien elf cats? Like, and why don't they have tails? Only the cat has a tail.
Yeah, I don't know.
Snoop or Snarf or whatever you said his name
But they're
was.
cat-based aliens, just like we're like what are we, like humans are like simian-based or whatever. However, I didn't study evolution for some reason as a kid in the schools I went to. But they're cat-based evolutional aliens.
Sure. As mentioned last week, because Kate called me out on it again, I'm not a big animation fan, but I did love the animation in this, at least in the first episode.
Because a lot more money went into that first episode.
It's just so 80s anime. I just love the aesthetic of it. Although, full disclosure, I did lose interest once they left the spaceship.
Yeah.
Like, once they left the spaceship, I was kind of like, all right, we're on, like...
They're on Battle World
the moon
now.
of Endor.
Yeah.
Like,
They're on the Battle World, and they're just going to have battle
there are
times from now
robot
on.
Ewoks, like...
Yeah. It's Star Wars with cat people.
Literally robot Ewoks. Like, I'm like, all right, I get it. We're on a forest planet now. It's a lot less interesting. I loved the character. I love the character design. It's fantastic. Bizarre, but fantastic. But yeah, I enjoyed the space stuff.
Right.
A lot more than once they got to the planet, I was a lot less interested.
Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention is that the villains are the mutants, right? And they're like these wolves and lizards and hyena anthropomorphic monster people. But they're called mutants. But I'm like, but they're no more mutated than the Thundercats. Like, this isn't really fair. Like,
Right.
they're just more anthropomorphic animal people that are also in space and are pirates and want to steal. Like, the whole... they're supposed to be going in the pilot episode to a specific new planet, but they don't make it because they get boarded by the mutant pirates. But I'm like, but they're called mutants, but they're just more animal people. And then because of their attack, they're like, well, now we can only make it to this closer planet that has a mummy on it.
Yes, I was confused by that because I'm like, wait a minute. So they've all been in hypersleep for like however long, and Lionel's the only one who aged up because his pod had like an issue or whatever.
Right.
But I was like, wait, so the bad guys also decided to jump into hyperspace and then go to sleep,
Yeah,
and
that-
then they woke up just in time to attack them at this specific planet?
The hyperspace theme of the first episode is very inconsistent because they need to get to this one. They can't make it to the planet they plan to, so they're going to go to Mum-Ra's planet. They don't know Mum-Ra's there. And Jaga, the Obi-Wan Kenobi cat, he's like, our navigation systems have been affected and someone needs to be awake and not in hypersleep, and they need to be able to pilot the ship to the planet. We can't depend on the robotic computer piloting. You would think it was 5 minutes later, the way the show is edited, that he just dies. But I guess the implication is it's been years,
Yeah.
like Interstellar or something. But the way they cut the scene, everyone goes in the hyperpods, and then 5 minutes later, he's old. He's like,
The old man is a
the
little
old
bit
man
older.
dies, yeah, and he dies. But they don't cut it that way. And yeah, and then they get to the planet, and you're right. The mutant pirates that were chasing them are right behind them. I'm like, hasn't it been 10 years of hypersleep? Like, how did you guys get here too? Not well thought out in terms of that.
Yeah,
That
so-
also really scared me and confused me as a kid.
Aw.
What was going on with Jaga? Like, I didn't understand the concepts of hypersleep and how it
Right.
would take like 10 years for them to get to the planet. And also, I guess it didn't help with the fact that looking at it as an adult now, they didn't, they explain it well in dialogue, but they don't communicate it in the editing that it's been 10 years of traveling there.
Right.
So, but I would get confused about why is he not getting in the pod, and then why does he die immediately?
So Mum-Ra is the villain. Is that like a play on Sun Ra? Because I get it, Mum-Ra.
Oh.
Like, Ra is the Egyptian god of the sun, and Mum-Ra is a mummy. But Sun Ra is also a badass jazz man known for his experimental cosmic kind of music. So I'm like, oh, is that like a play on that?
Yeah.
I like that.
Maybe. But Sun Ra, is that also an Egyptian god? Like
Ra
where
is the Egyptian god of the
right.
sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would love it if Mum-Ra actually did more like acid jazz throughout the show.
Be great. I
Mum-Ra
might actually keep watching it if he did.
Mum-Ra did not really scare me as a kid. I was just making stupid stuff up to fill time on the episode.
Another thing that was a little bugaboo for me was that it was like Lion-O is still supposed to be like mentally 12 or whatever, and but he grows up and immediately is like, I'm the leader now. And like he's like, no, inferior pet space cat, I am too big for toys now, because the little space cat tries to give him like toys a couple times, and he's just like, no, I'm too old for this.
And then later he tries to give him the sword that he needs to have, and he's like, another toy? It's like, this is the sword, stupid.
Yeah.
But when you're a kid, when you're a little boy, that I did understand that scene when I was a little boy. Because when you're a little boy, inevitably, there is a point where you're like, I am an adult now. But you're still a kid. You're still a silly little kid.
Right.
But you're like, I'm an adult now. And I'm going to... And so that was basically like, I couldn't imagine being that kind of kid and actually literally being in a adult's body suddenly.
Right.
It is funny though that it's
like Big or Shazam.
Yeah. For that short time that we knew Lion-O as an actual kid on the original series, minutes worth of screen time, he's a much more kind and reasonable child. And then as soon as he has an adult's body, he's like, guess what, f***ers? Bow to your king.
He's so belligerent suddenly. And I'm like, I get where they're coming from with trying to do the child king who's like now in the adult body or whatever.
Because also kids can identify with that. They'd be like, "Ooh, I want to grow up and be Lion-O someday."
I get that. It didn't vibe with me because I don't know. I don't feel like having a very naive main character really plays off well. Usually, it kind of comes off as kind of like obnoxious sometimes because the visual difference of having like an adult, like a visual adult versus like what you visually think of as a child kind of has like a disconnect. But I get it. Like I said, Big works. Shazam works. You buy it every time. In this situation, it definitely did not work. It also does not work when you're as annoyingly naive as Anastasia Steele, which is, ugh.
Okay.
That's 50 Shades of Grey.
I know what it is.
But do you know where that does work?
Where?
She's not a child in an adult's body, but where having an overly naive character really pays off and comes off as like wholesome. Barbarella.
Ah.
Because Barbarella, for it being a very sexual movie, like she is this very like innocent, pure-minded, naive individual, and yet it never gets like really annoying.
Right. But that's also because that's the society she comes from on her spaceship.
It's true. I just feel like Thundercats should have gone a little bit more Barbarella with Lion-O is all I'm
sure
saying.
a lot of fans think that should go that way.
Maybe don't open it with him floating around like naked in space, though. That might not go over so well. Oh, technically they did. He was naked.
Yeah. So I also have a memory of talking to Matt Thiessen about this song in real life at some point from like 2001 to 2003 when I was talking to Matt Thiessen after a show.
It just occurred to me that we said we're having our friend Matt on this week.
And we just talked about
We just talked about Matt, and we didn't say like, sorry, we're having a Matt on that isn't Hoops or Thiessen.
Yeah, I should just put in the podcast title, special guest, Matt.
Matt. And you're like, ooh, which one? Let's choose.
We said our friend Matt, who's Heavy Ordnance Studio. I don't think anyone's confused.
Danny, I know.
So, one time I talked to Matt Thiessen after a show in the early 2000s, and I talked about I Am Lion-O, and there was, before memes were called memes, there was this thing that leaked online where it was blooper outtakes from the voice sessions of this show.
Oh, that's
them
cool.
like cursing and stuff.
Ah.
And like other things like that. I said to Matt Thiessen, I'm like, it would have been funny if you... Now, I knew they're a Christian band. I understood that. But there are a couple of them that aren't dirty. I'd have been like, it would have been funny if you used one of those like drops in the album. And it was like, oh yeah, that would have been cool, whatever. I think he even said like, oh, I don't know if we could have used those. I'm like, well, not the dirty ones. So here's those, and I won't edit these in afterwards so we can talk over them. Here is like I said, these leaked in the early 2000s. You could download these like on Napster and stuff and probably get these off eBaum's World and all those early meme ways you would get memes before they were called memes. So here are some of the vocal outtakes from Thundercats. I guess we'll bleep these when they get dirty.
You gotta snap out of it, Lion-O!
Jeez! Oh my gosh. That scared the crap out of me. Oh so I'm the one wearing the headphones now because of Jessica's ear surgery. Yeah. I did not expect it. I had it turned up all the way because the voicemails had to be up all the way earlier. Oh my gosh.
They're dropping their pens on the thing?
How does it feel, Danny? How does it feel?
Feels bad.
Yeah.
Feels real bad.
Now you know.
So here are the Thundercats outtakes that leaked online in the early 2000s.
Snap out of it, Lion-O!
Shut up, you fuck. I should have known the Territor didn't mean us any harm when the Sword of Omens did.
This YouTuber edited it down, though, because you get that F word. I don't even have to bleep it now.
I don't even know. Is this real?
Yes.
This totally feels like they could have just put it in, especially because they bleeped it. Like,
no,
it's
feels... 100% real. This YouTuber edited it over real footage, but I'm saying these MP3s were real MP3s, just like Casey Kasem yelling about gosh GD dead dog dedication
right.
after an upbeat number.
Right.
These are like leaked outtakes that happened for real.
Obey me. And anyway, it was just plain stupid to assume it might be bad. Just what the fuck am I talking about?
It's when Wily Cat and Kid are pretending to be the most helpful that they're dropping their pens on the thing while I'm talking. Let's find the mega condenser. I'm saying that too fast. Let's find the mega condenser. Still going too fast.
What's wrong, Lion-O?
Fuck, here it is again.
What's here again?
That thing, that mega thing.
Want me to say it?
Yes!
I'm going to put this one right between her pretty.
That's the line of the show right here.
And keep your foot off that blasted samoflange.
What the fuck is a samoflange?
I have to do that again.
Oh, Lion-O, we're not...
What's the matter, Snarf?
You got a cold.
Thunder! 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 Thundercats! I'm going too high.
That was my favorite. Thunder! 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 I'm going too high! That's the one that would be funny in a like, dropping a clip in a song. Just like, you know, like Newfound Glory loved to do, like dropping movie clips into the middle of your song.
Sorry, I got up to get a snack
and April came
like,
running.
Yeah.
This is very unprofessional of both of you.
Why are they called Thundercats? Do cats like thunder? I don't know. I don't have a cat. I have a dog. April doesn't like thunder.
That's a good point.
So even though I just got a snack, are we ready to go take our break before we come back?
Yeah, why don't you chew off mic and we'll go to our break. We'll come back. We'll do a quick comparison of some of the differences between the gold and the 2001 version. And then we'll do Jessica's deep dive. We'll be right back.
We want to thank you very much for listening to Sadie Hawkins Pod. Please follow us on Twitter and Instagram, which are both at Sadie Hawkins Pod. From there, you can interact with us, as well as view the videos and images we talk about on the show.
You can also call our voicemail line, which is 402-95-SADIE. That's 402-957-2343. Leave us a message and we can play it on a future episode.
Also, we invite you to check out SadieHawkinsPod.com, one simple place to get links to all our social media and a link to our TeePublic store.
There you can pick up merchandise, or merch as it's known in the industry. We have our Black Flag parody shirt, our Little Sheet Boy ice cream shirt, and our all-new Boys from Canton ampersand shirts that list the first names of every album lineup of Relient K.
And if you can't get enough of us, well, good news. At patreon.com/SadieHawkinspod, we are releasing at least 2 bonus episodes a month. You'll also have access to our whole backlog, including our discussion of Owl City's Ocean Eyes, reading through the Complex Infrastructure book, and the songs from K is for Karaoke.
Finally, we want to thank our current patrons, who include JR, Jarrett, Eric, Joel, Connor, Michael, Helen, Samantha, Roxanne, Jimmy Eat Pod, This Might Be a Podcast, Tucker, David, and Brady.
We hope to see you there, and even if we don't, we hope that you will keep us in positive regard.
Aww.
Hey Jeff, have you ever heard of Relient K?
No, Tracy, I haven't, but you know what that reminds me of? If I had $1 million.
What? Oh, no, don't do it.
I would buy you a K car.
A nice Reliant automobile. Yes. How did I know you were going to go there?
Well, it could have something to do with the fact that it is the most famous song by the band we discuss every week.
Oh, you mean Bare Naked Ladies?
Dude, Relient K is a Christian rock band. You can't say that.
Sure I can.
I don't think you can.
Okay, fine. BNL. We have a great time discussing all the BNL songs alphabetically over at Bare Naked ABCs.
Dude!
We're not naked when we do it, and it's a podcast. Anyway, I've heard these guys and their music. These guys can take a joke.
Ooh, I have one for you.
Don't.
Have you heard the one about the boy who moved into the hen house to sleep?
We've already done this song.
He woke up with yolk on his face when he found that all the hens had crossed the street.
Oh, for bad jokes like that and more, come listen to us on all platforms you download podcasts. Just look for Bare Naked ABCs.
Dude!
It's a brand name.
So there's only a few differences between the gold version and the original 2001 version that I can tell. And a reminder that when you listen on Spotify or any streaming thing, you're always hearing the gold versions. So, like happens with a lot of the changes between the gold versions of albums 2 and 3, the opening lick is just like changed to a different stereo side. Like in one of them it's on the left heavy, and one of them it's on right heavy, and I don't know if why they do that. Like, what's the decision there? Or is it just so you know? Is it just a better way to just Jessica's giving
April, stop eating
more
on
bread?
Mike.
So I don't know like what the choice is there. But then one thing, the biggest difference, and Lion Wilson, there might be a difference there, but it's not like huge that I can tell. The biggest difference is the bridge between the two versions. That sort of slowed down pretty part. This part is really different because every gold remix of albums 2 and 3, generally speaking, all the instruments are kind of leveled the same, and sometimes the vocals are kind of brought up. Everything is kind of smoothed out sound-wise. On this, where everything isn't just mixed to one level, you can hear Hoops is using those reversing pedals. Like, listen to this, and you can hear like the music is playing. There's these guitar notes that are looping backwards.
Softer, softer to me.
That is true. It's written from the same time, but did you hear those notes that are going backwards? You can especially hear them because you can hear them cutting off. Mm-hmm. Well, those are technically still in the gold mix, but they're so buried because everything is just like they're still there, but the stark cutoff at the end is like smoothed over. I'm like, no, the cool part of the original mix was that those looped backwards notes, you can hear them and you're hearing the cutoff. They're still there, but they're a little bit more buried, and they're smoothed out when they end. The original mix, you can tell way easier that the notes are looped backwards. But on this mix, if you're not paying super attention, you might not be able to tell. And I just don't think that's cool, because it's like, it was cool in the original mix.
Yeah. Something that I forgot to mention earlier was that because this was like a skip song usually for me, I only really knew the chorus. Thundercats, oh! Right. I had no idea what he was singing other than that. And I definitely thought he was singing about Jesus. There are definitely parts where it's like, I swear he just said Jesus. Like,
it is kind of worshipy. It is. That bridge is they use that same tone of the bridge of Lion-O for their worship songs.
Yeah.
That's an observation right there. So that's everything I've got until we do covers and stuff. So what do you have for deep dive?
Well, we don't have any genius annotations for this song, and over on Song Meanings, it's just a lot of reminiscing about the poster's love of Thundercats. Mm-hmm. There is a TikTok page for this song, yet sadly, no actual TikToks.
Oh.
We do have a Thundercats.org forum, though.
Okay.
.org.
Right. Nonprofit organization dedicated to the enhancement of Thundercats.
So this is Waiting for Lion-O, new member, and their avatar is a picture of like April doesn't appreciate it.
Are you still talking about cats after 4 weeks? I cannot take this.
It is a picture of like, it's like an illustration of a lion with like a top hat, so it looks like the Babadook.
Interesting.
And so it says, I'm not sure if anyone's posted this before, but the Christian rock band Relient K on their second album had a song titled I Am Lion-O. The lyrics are, and then they post the lyrics. It says the album, I'm pretty sure, is available at iTunes, or to find out more about the band, click here. Ooh, let's click here. And it just takes us to RelientK.com, current RelientK.com.
Right.
And they posted that on February 24th, 2007. And then HeFan, a legacy member of this forum, said, Chris here, thanks for the heads up about that. Yep, just found it on iTunes. The preview clip sounds really cool, actually. I might even buy it, smiley face. Take care, smiley face.
Take care. Get out of here.
Tigra Wan, Glasswalker, whatever that means, says, yeah, that is actually a really good song. Relient K is a pretty good band. I just don't have that song. I'm wanting to get it, though.
Just go get it.
Matt, ooh, I wonder if this is one of the Matts, who has a Batman avatar and is a Thundercats legend, says, I agree. I have their first 3 CDs, but don't really listen to them anymore, because the third one made them start to suck. But that song is good. By the way, Waiting for Lion-O, what is your avatar from? It looks familiar, but I can't place it. For some reason, I'm thinking art from Beck's Guerrero CD. Just a guess anyway. It's pretty cool, though. Waiting for Lion-O said, I guess this post isn't titled Waiting for Lion-O. That's their username. Sorry.
Okay.
Said, I agree that Relient K's first 2 albums were great, but then their third wasn't anything special, and I've had little interest since. Oh, and Matt, my avatar comes
Spicy
from a
take.
poster for the Raconteurs. I thought that the cat motif was appropriate, so not a Babadook lion, but a Raconteurs thing. What is up with everybody, like, not being there for 3 lefts? Like, what? Also, what? I'm sorry, these are all the same people who, every time we read a review for 2 lefts, they're like, well, it's really just a departure from their earlier sound. Like, I'm sorry, what? Are we listening to the same band? And then finally, Cat's Pat, also known as Leprada, said, thank you for posting those lyrics. I had most of them down, but I couldn't figure out the next words after fighting evil because Relient K's frontman didn't enunciate very well. Thanks again, smiley face.
Thanks for posting those lyrics.
Ooh, day trip from Prague to the UNESCO towns of Trebek and Telk. I should probably know that since I'm half Czech. Is an ad. Watch gay movies. Another ad on Deku. The origins of Mumra. Brush your dream toothbrush. Interesting. Are Tigra and Bengali mutual brothers? I don't know. I don't have those answers.
The brothers, so the 2 sort of orange-haired cats on the show, Lion-O and Tigra, I guess, they're not brothers on the original show, but then they are brothers in the 2011 reboot, which we didn't really talk about a lot. We'll talk about it more with Matt, but it's basically like Avatar: The Last Airbender Thundercats.
Yeah, it was so D&D. I was like, oh man, this just like, I feel like I'm on a D&D adventure, like that kind of art style. I did kind of enjoy the art for that one. Then we have a personal blog over at randallwong.com. Weekend update. Thundercats. Oh, I'm Lion-O. This is from January 26, 2002. Well, it's been a little while since I updated. The CD project is coming along. Still doing most of the guitar work for the project and haven't gotten around to doing the vocals yet. Still aiming for the April 1st release date, hee. We got a drum set in our house now. Nate came down last weekend and dropped it off. All the guys in the house, well, Derek, Ricky, and I, have been playing with it and trying to learn. I went out and got some hot rod drumsticks for it because I like them a lot. Though they're getting abused a little. The drum set will help for the recording. Woo! I don't have to lug my computer to my church anymore. I got a new CD this week at Brennan. It's from this group called Relient K. They're cool. Haha, they're kind of punk music, but I actually like it. Try to find them on the internet. I haven't
I hate those dirty punks, but this is all right.
I haven't looked for their website yet, but if I do see it, I'll post it on here. They have one song, track 10 on The Anatomy of the Tongue in Cheek, where they sing about Thundercats. Any group that sings about Thundercats or any of my other childhood cartoons is cool. Like Chris Rice's cartoon song, Woo! Still looking for a live journal key for Lisa. My buddy Nick was gonna see if he gave his out already. I guess he did though, since he hasn't gotten back to me. Oh well. Stopped by Tim's house today too. Hung out with him and talked for a little while.
Right.
They're in the middle of writing songs for their new CD. And should start production for that either within this semester or come summertime. After Tim buys his guitar, probably. Ha.
Well, when you said weekend update, that reminded me that there was from like a couple years ago SNL sketch where they were like Thundercats and He-Man and this kid in his kitchen. And I don't feel like watching it.
Well, then to close up the deep dive, we just have one more personal blog.
Okay.
This is over on Medium. Lacey Laanna. Relient K. That one time I got to see my favorite band. Lacey Laanna, November 19th, 2013. It's a 4-minute read. I love these blogs that tell you how long it's going to take to read through the articles. It's like a challenge. I decided that 140 characters really wasn't enough to convey my night at the Relient K concert. The result of this was the creation of my Medium account, Dear Matt and Hoops. I've listened to Relient... April agrees. I've listened to Relient K for over a decade now. I still remember the first time I heard Sadie Hawkins dance. It was played on one of those Walkman CD players, the headphones given to me by my buddy Will in 4th grade. After that, I begged my mom to buy me Anatomy of Tongue in Cheek. I remember girls in my grade making dance routines to Hilary Duff and Britney Spears. I was doing my own interpretive routines to Breakdown and Lion-O. Yes, I was and still am a giant dork.
We've probably seen them on YouTube.
I have since then given up dancing, at least in front of people. Through my adolescent years, I continued to snag RK albums from 2 lefts all the way through 5 score. I can remember laying in bed.
You snag those albums.
During the tough times, from breakups and dealing with issues that arose from my parents' divorce, listening to your music. I can't tell you the amount of times I cried to let it all out, or vented to which to bury us or the hatchet.
Well, give it a try.
You've always seemed to write the words that were on my heart. Just knowing I wasn't alone in some of my experiences was enough to get me through things that I might not have made it through otherwise. So if you guys are reading this, thanks for that. It wasn't until recently that I...
April, you're making so many smacky sounds. I'm over here microdosing bread to April so she'll stop whining. Like I'm giving her teeny little bites.
It wasn't until recently that I really understood and appreciated the truth in your lyrics. 2 years ago now, I accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior. Now when I listen to songs like Getting Into You or I So Hate Consequences, I really get it. My salvation has made me really understand the feelings that are behind the lyrics. Recently, I've broken down to more than useless. The process of sanctification through Christ is a messy one, a constant struggle between the spirit and the flesh. There's a fine line between humility and self-hatred, and I have a tendency to barrel roll over that line. Now, in a new way, it helps to know that I'm not alone.
Sorry.
This is lovely.
This is very lovely, but it still made me think of Star Fox when they said barrel roll.
So, that's what you think of when you hear barrel roll? I think of a roller coaster. Like a barrel roll as you do a roller coaster or an airplane. My uncle has like a little 2-seater, like a little biplane, and he's taken me up a few times, and I used to be like a massive roller coaster lover in like high school and then college. And so I remember this one time in college when we went to visit, it was just like he and myself and like my cousin and I went out to the airfield. I think my aunt was there too. And when he took me up, he like did a barrel roll and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And my dad on the ground like almost had a heart attack. My aunt was like, David, it's okay.
April, you're not entitled to this bread. I'm only giving it to you so you'll stop making noise.
She says that we're having communion, Dad. Come on. So now that I've gotten through my excessive background that I'm sure no one has been interested in, I was interested, poster.
Yeah, it's very nice.
I'll get to the good stuff. A while back, the Relient K tweeted me about coming to Texas soon, which is really cool. And Matt T even informed me he would like Reese's Pieces at the concert, also really cool. Now, one more important me fact. I am a closet introvert. I am an old woman in the body of a 20-year-old. Big crowds make me feel nauseous. For this band alone, I could overcome this and endure the sweaty, sardine-packed environment that is a general admission concert. That is so true. What a great way to put that. Like some of the shows that Danny has dragged me to, man. I snagged my tickets for the Saturday show in San Antonio as soon as I could. And they posted the picture of that. Oh, Twin Productions presents Motion City soundtrack with Relient K. Nice. My husband, brother-in-law, and best friend endured leaving I thought for a second that her husband was her brother-in-law and her best friend, and not 3 different people.
What is this person's name? Lacey?
Yes.
I found their tweet.
Nice!
Relient K, will you guys be hanging out after the A&M #Kyle Field show? I will bring Reese's Pieces, @mention Matt Hoops, @mention Matt Thiessen, and it's from 2015? So
2013.
Well, the text is from 2015.
Oh, what? But I have photographic proof here that says 2013.
WTF, unless this was one from later. Oh, here it is. Okay. I see. She did it. So she did it. Oops, she did it again in 2015 in another show. She reminded, I'll bring Reese's Pieces again. So she wrote to Motion City soundtrack. I'm bringing Reese's Pieces. She said at Motion City Music, I'm bringing Relient K some Reese's Pieces as requested by Matt Thiessen. Any requests for y'all? And Motion City soundtrack replied to Lacey and said, we are all good. Just bring your excitement for rock. And Lacey replied, that shall definitely be brought. Nice. I found this quite easily by just typing in Relient K Reese's. Yeah.
This blog does go on for a little bit longer, and we got through the Thundercats part, so we'll link that somewhere so that if anybody wants to read the rest of that, they can.
Okay. So... last week, I'll start with fan stuff. So last week, I'm like, wow, not a single Sahara AMV set to The Lion King. And then we get one for this song? This makes no earthly sense.
Maybe people just weren't making a lot of AMVs by the time nope, that doesn't make any sense, does it? Because I was like, maybe, by the time Air for Free came out, people were just into AMVs. But no, they totally are.
Also, Simba's story is kind of similar. He doesn't grow up by, a malfunctioning hyperchamber. He just, spends his days out in the jungle and then comes back to the fields or the Sahara later on.
I am shocked that you have not clicked the not interested button or do not recommend for the Bowling for Soup video recommended below this AMV.
I've never seen it before this time. This is the first time it's come up. You know what? I'm trying to be more positive. I do not care for Bowling for Soup, but I'm trying to be more positive.
That's just because you lost to a girl with much bigger breasts.
That's such an awful lyric. This video comes up a whole lot when I do Relient K YouTube research. This is Leah B Studios, who we also recently talked about because of Vinyl Countdown. She came up again. She had done that Vinyl Countdown bedroom FMV, and then she also did the Pressin' On bedroom FMV where she was pressing an on button the whole time.
Right.
This video comes up all the time, and it's a 7.5-minute video where she basically just lip syncs portions of Relient K songs.
Gotcha.
It comes up all the time, but because it's a bunch of Relient K songs, I never bring it to the table to discuss. But in this case, well, here you've got Pleading the Fifth as kind of the menu screen music.
I like that Relient K shirt.
So she's just kind of setting up to do this thing. And what she's very, comedic is Leah B. She's, very, brave, comedic, wacky, and performative and does these very like funny, like bold, wild lip syncing videos. So it's two of her on a split screen, basically pretending to harmonize with herself. Like she's very, she you can tell she's, April, you're not getting any more bread. We're talking about Leah B. You could tell she could definitely like be a comedic actress. Like
Sure.
she's got raw talent. Not
Yeah.
even that raw. It's actually very well put together in these YouTube videos. And a lot of, when I've looked at the rest of her channel, a lot of it is more like art discussions and talks about color and things like that.
Cool.
So I'm glad we finally got to talk about that video because it's constantly coming up. Here is It's Sarah 14, and this is like a church performative,
Oh my goodness gracious.
like not a dance exactly, but a performative skit.
There's
lip
boys.
synced.
So there's 4 boys on the stage. 3 are sitting down in chairs with 1 boy in a row, with 1 boy standing behind them, and he keeps touching them, and they have their heads down. And every time he touches them, they put their heads up and like lip sync along. to the song.
It's like some sort of improv game of like, if you feel my hand on your shoulder, then you start lip syncing, and then if I don't touch you anymore, you have to stop.
And for some reason, the audience is really into it.
I feel like this is a lock-in or a youth group talent show. Like, this can't just be regular youth group night. I guess it could be, but it's so raucous for this little performative skit. It is like a game. Like, I guess they all have to know the song really well, and then if you feel someone touch you,
Does this
you have to lip
camera
sync.
ever zoom out? Because honestly, I want to see this background in full. It's like a globe.
It's one of those, it's a church with a very teak, trimmed sanctuary. Very like, almost looks like a Norwegian furniture store sanctuary type of church. But they've got like a big, here we go. Okay, it's a big picture on the wall. We don't get to see all of it, but it says saves the world. And it's a big picture of a globe. And it says the words save the world across it.
Danny,
Yeah.
3 guesses. Who do you think saves the world?
Lion-O? Jesus?
That was a really good guess.
That was a good
I was going to say Batman.
Well, anyway, so there's that. That's by It's Sarah 14. They zoomed out a little bit, but they didn't zoom out a lot. They did their skit and didn't zoom out a lot. Asked me to watch that again, and I would say I'd rather not. So I enjoyed this. A guy on YouTube named P. Diddy Tube 4 years ago just uploaded a 6-minute video where he's just going over things things he bought at a garage sale. This is less, this is actually less silly than I thought it was. I thought it was him trying to sell his stuff on eBay. And I'm so disappointed. Oh, he's got a beautiful collie. This is stuff he found at garage sales. I'm so disappointed. I thought he was like, I'm going to upload to YouTube all these things you can buy from me. Well, he bought some Relient K CDs. He doesn't actually talk about Lion-O. I'm real disappointed in myself for that one. I have 3 different videos of kids singing in sort of grandma's creepy living room. So this one's uploaded by Ilian and Sierra Show. ELAINA and SIARA Show. And it's just one static shot. It's probably a camera on a tripod. And it's got that classic, like, this video was compressed by MG3 or whatever watermark. But somehow they shrunk it down so it's just like a tiny dot on the horizon instead of being across the whole video. But that kind of makes it worse.
There's a child's playpen in the background.
They painted themselves up like cats. They're wearing punk emo clothes, but like a little over the top. Like, I don't, like real cut up and stitched together and stuff.
Good stuff. Classic.
And they're holding stuffed lion toys at you.
I hope they're doing well and living their dreams now.
Here's the most frenetic FMV I found. This is uploaded by Guillermo5782 12 years ago. Maybe also the oldest video on YouTube for this song.
Guillermo,
5782. It's just called Relient K Lion-O. And it's these two kids out in a giant backyard somewhere like on the East Coast. And they're just running around holding Guitar Hero controllers. And the third person who's holding the camera runs around themselves. They're running around, they're chasing the camera.
they're kind of pretending to like shoot the camera, that, you know, that guitar move. Classic.
All the FMVs that we didn't get for Sahara. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I love this. They spin around. The two kids stand there in the middle of this, you know, big backyard, and the camera spins around them. This is actually a pretty intense music video.
This is in New England. Look at that New Englandy looking house.
Yeah. There's two different situations where boys just sit there and lip sync Lion Wilson. This one is uploaded by Travis B. Langer. B.L. Langer. Sorry, B.E. Langer. This one, they're like older. They were like teenagers. And it's just one static shot of them sitting in the corner of grandma's living room. And they're just lip syncing Lion Wilson. And that's all there is to it. But then, and I was like, are these the same boys years earlier? Uploaded to Rebecca Rebecca Dahlen is this other one where it's two younger boys, like probably in their preteens, doing the same thing in grandma's dining room a couple years earlier. And I'm like, many years earlier, 13 years ago. So I'm like, were those the same boys twice on two different YouTube channels, 13 years apart?
Could be. 13 years apart.
And Club Penguin, there's an AMV, there's a Club Penguin MV by Danny New, Dannino. I'm always spelling these so people can go type them in if they need to later. And it's just a Club Penguin MV where they're just going do 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 do. You know the Club Penguin
And
MVs.
it's like moving around.
Yeah. There's also actual, like, stylistic editing, whereas normally a Club Penguin MV is just they typed the words in for their Club Penguin to quote-unquote say, and then they edit that together. But this one actually has, like, these preset transitions. So a ton of AMVs, like, not a bunch that we need to watch. I have 2 from the 2011 show. I have 4 from the 1985 show. And I think that's about all, like, the fan videos that were worth talking about. Yeah, so there's 3 covers. This first one is by, and this is so funny. So I posted one meme early for Thundercats to our social media, and this person popped in to our Instagram comments.
Oh, wow. And
linked their vocal cover, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know. I found it.
Nice.
So here it is. So this is Hasna Budai Linawati, and this is her vocal cover of Relient K's I Am Lion-O.
Chillin, Outtakes, Marvin, me, and the twins. My favorite feline is the one who wore cheetah skins. Playing evil, we took book and we burn a lot. Ask me to cross them, and I would say I'd rather not. I'd rather not. I'd rather not. I'd rather not. Thundercats, oh, Thundercats, oh.
So thanks to Hasna for sending that to us, even though we
Yeah.
also did find it.
Good stuff.
That's fun. Yeah. It just needs, like, more of her in the mix.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely turn up the vocals. I don't know, get closer to the mic. I'm not sure what was going on there. And, you know, I see lots of vocal covers, people just singing the song along to the song, and sometimes I skip them, and maybe I wouldn't have gotten to this one, but I really appreciate her reaching out. So
Yeah.
I'm like, well, we gotta play it now. So then we have two other covers on top of that, and they're both live, like, talent show. Jeez. Talent show type situations. This is the KU Crew talent show, I'm Lion-O by Relient K. This was uploaded 9 years ago, and Kettering University Crew Talent Show, Winter 2012. There's no vocalist for this band, but basically it's just like
Sick.
a really well-sounding rock band covering the song.
Yeah, it sounds pretty legit.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, and a kid just did like a half-ass somersault in the
And
background.
they're in an auditorium, not a concert auditorium, like a college auditorium
Yeah.
with, seats, with like wooden seats. And they're trying to start a mosh pit. The kids
Sorry,
all
a
have
cartwheel, not a somersault. It almost came out like a somersault, though.
The college kids have to actually stand in the aisles because this place isn't meant for concerts.
You
It's
should
meant
have
for
played
lectures.
college kids.
Man, I love that guitar tone. Those arpeggios, I believe they're called. I think
Wait, they
'cause Daniel
just
answered
transitioned
a
into
question
softer
for-
to me, right?
No.
No, this is still Thundercats.
No, it's just the breakdown, bridgy
Okay.
part of Thundercats, which I just think it lives next door to Softer to Me.
Without the vocals, yeah.
Yeah.
I totally thought that we were transitioning into Softer to Me.
And maybe they did play College Kids some other time that night. But here's another one. This is Less Rambunctious Teens. This is the CB Bandfest 2008, uploaded by Adjustable 2 Wee Winkle. Adjustable 2 Wee Winkle is the name of the YouTube channel. 13 years ago, Connor Scott, Tim Schmidt, Matt Klima, and Eric Tringali performing I Am Lion-O by Relient K at Cardinal Gibbons Bandfest. Such a mouthful. Are you laughing at me? You're laughing at the dog. What? I thought you're laughing at me trying to make my way through reading these YouTube descriptions. What's April
Because I
doing?
just gave April a little piece of crust to appease her, and she's like smacking so loudly.
Well, here is CB Bandfest in 2008. I don't know if there's a name. Here's Connor, Tim, Matt, and Eric performing I Am Lion-O at the CB Bandfest 08.
Listen, April, I really appreciate that you want to be a more active part of the podcast. You are an engineer, after all. We've asked you to be on mic before. That's great. Just maybe not during the cover section or the deep dive.
I think
those
she's
are
actually
kind of our times to shine.
I think she thinks we're having dinner right now because we only use the kitchen table for dinner once in a while. We use it for podcasting all the time, but I think she's like, "Oh, it's dinner time right now," and I'm missing out. So not a great camera, but I can almost hear through this bad camera that they're really doing it very well. Like, I hope that sounds good enough for people to tell, but I think it sounded great.
It's good stuff.
And of course, I did this last week as well, or 2 weeks ago. I completely forgot I'm supposed to start with Relient K clips, not with the fan stuff.
Yes.
So I guess we're just doing it backwards from now on. We're just
Every time you skip this, I just
assume that there
it
was
means
nothing.
There's nothing.
Well, they played this at Cornerstone 2003. Here is I Am Lion-O.
I gotta ask you guys, actually beg you guys to sing along like a million times tonight, but this is the first installment You guys feel like singing along at all tonight to some stuff? So that makes us feel good. I do, man. This song's about the Thundercats.
And now, back to Thundercats.
And that's interesting. I don't remember that. I mean, they might have done that because I just don't remember that. I remember them doing the meow mix, please deliver part back then more often. But again, this is a festival set, so it's a little tighter. They can't do that minute-long meow mix thing.
So they're just like, oh, we'll throw in a little sound bite.
Yeah.
The crowd's getting rowdy and like throwing stuff at the stage.
Woodstock 94. So yeah, it sounds really good. That's like the best sounding live one I found, because I also found in 2012 at Rocketown in Nashville, they surprised the crowd by playing it and opening with the meow mix thing.
We want chicken. We want liver. Meow mix, please deliver. Meow, meow, meow. You can sing along too, 'cause I am not just a cat, I'm more than that. I'm a Thundercat too.
So this is going on the socials, because any footage of John and Ethan in the band gets a lot of reactions, and them playing I Am Lion-O. How many views does this have?
Got that extra
It's got
guitar in
3,000
there to
views,
really richen the sound.
Yeah. So exactly. So people know this exists, but not nearly as many people as should know this exists. And yeah, then there's some 2003 footage from Indiana that is pretty cool, but we pretty much saw it with Cornerstone. But the other thing is like this 2003 Indiana footage. If you go type in Indiana 2003 I Am Lion-O, it was like a dusty like field, and everyone the descriptions on the YouTube video are like, this is the worst concert I've ever been to. It's not Relient K's fault. We were all breathing in dust all night.
That's like It's Not Dead Fest 2015.
Hell yeah. So that's about it for Relient K stuff. Now I have a whole plethora of, if there's some other cat-related pun to say instead of plethora, of Thundercats-related like paraphernalia. I found a SoundCloud. This has nothing to do with Thundercats. It just came up in the search. A whole SoundCloud rap EP called the Employee of the Month EP. Just found that. And then we'll play one of these. Tell me which of these sounds interesting to you. A Thundercats Rave. A sort of screamo metal band called Lion I Am. A 85 Thundercats AMV set to POD. a fake theatrical Thundercats live action movie trailer. Someone's
The Thundercat Rave.
Okay, I was also let me read them all just real
Okay.
quick. This one is not that interesting, but it's a Hugh Jackman speed drawing. It's a speed drawing YouTube video of someone drawing Hugh Jackman as Lion-O. It's literally there's nothing else to it than what I described. There's all kinds of Linkin Park AMVs. Thundercats fans love Linkin Park. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I listened to Danny doing his deep dive with his YouTube stuff, and oh my gosh, so much POD and Linkin Park that he was playing.
And someone also, it seemed funny at first, but it quickly wore out. Someone took the entire live-action Cats musical movie trailer and just set it to the original theme song for Thundercats. It works for about 10 seconds, and then it immediately gets tiring.
Yeah.
So let's watch the Thundercats Rave, and then we'll go talk to our friend from college named Matt, who is not a Hoops or a Thiessen. He's Heavy Ordnance Studio. Here's the Thundercat Rave.
Wow.
It is a big old rave where somebody's up on stage dressed like Lion-O, like egging on the crowd and saying, "Come on, let's dance."
And there's like a guy in his underwear behind him, and I can't tell if he's dressed like a Thundercat or not.
Right.
This Lion-O looks a bit more Bowie than anything. Oh, now I see the little Thundercat belt with the symbol on there. Oh, and there's the lights are in the background. The logo is lighting up in the background.
Oh, nice. I had reason to think this wasn't even America. Let me double check.
Oh, it's TVs. There's like 5 TVs across the DJ booth, and
It's
they've
Mexico.
got the Thundercats logo flashing on them.
And this is in Mexico because it's a Mexican. All of the description and titles in English, but the website to check out this club is .mx. So
Sick.
we should take this footage and just set it to I Am Lion-O.
Yes. Do it.
So that's I Am Lion-O. Just you like this song, and I guess you can discuss. I pretty much already know your answer, but we'll pick it for both the all work no version and the all work no version and the anatomy no version. How do you feel? Better, same, less?
Loving the all work version. So good. Go check it out. You can find it on YouTube. The anatomy version, I actually was thinking about this ahead of time because I'm like, do I like it the same or less?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's just kind of the same.
Okay.
It's not less. I definitely don't
Right.
like it more, is what I mean. Like, no, like actually reading the lyrics out doesn't really change my feeling one way or the other. I think this is definitely like a great song, and it's an even better song if you have the Thundercats like nostalgia.
Right. I'm going to micromanage this and say I like the all work and no playlist version better. I like the gold version less. And I like the original 2001 mix better. Or the same. The same.
Except too bad it wasn't on All Work No Playlist, but it was on All Work No Play.
Who's that calling? What? I hear someone calling on the phone. Let's go to him now.
I am the greatest Thundercat of them all.
April, you gotta be good. Not a repeat performance of last
Oh
night.
yeah, last night she was so bad on the podcast. She kept like coming over to us and demanding food. She thought we were having dinner at the dinner table.
Which is a novelty thing for us. We
Right.
don't eat dinner at the dinner table usually. So
So I have to be formal, and this is weird because you're our friend, but welcome to the podcast. Our friend Matt Kiernan, who is Heavy Ordnance Studios online. I mentioned this before, but a bunch of our listeners who also listen to Magnified Pod are probably familiar with your work from their last 2 seasons and the artwork that you did for that show. Yes.
Yes, I didn't know if that was.
Sorry, that was jump in anytime.
that was your introduction.
That was
Matt.
my
That's
introduction.
What you're getting.
And you're our friend from college. We already explained all of that before you were here. So
And we kind of threw this at you, but the truth is that I had been thinking about this like since we started the podcast. I was like, we have to have Matt on the Thundercats episode so that Danny has somebody to talk Thundercats with.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
No problem. So the first thing we got to ask about, and we talked about this before, is another big part of the reason why we thought to have you on to talk Thundercats is because do you remember your wedding gift to us?
It had to have been fairly low rent because I was really broke then.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we hinted at. We even talked about how anyone else from Full Sail that we invited, because it had only been like it had been 5 years. It
was 2 years. It was like 2 years after we graduated.
Well, we graduated in 2007, so it was 3 years in our.
Oh, there we go. Yeah,
but I'm sure not 3 calendar years, because I'm sure whatever. It had only been a couple of years. People are still dealing with like the nuclear fallout that is college, financial fallout that is college. So we understood that all of our college friends wouldn't be able to get us like big presents or whatever. So we tried to have cheap things on the list, but those cheap things on the wedding registries went really quickly. So like they weren't there for our college friends. Like we basically should have made a separate registry just for Full Sail students. But then you gave us something that was basically handmade. And do you remember what that was? I'm glad you don't remember exactly.
I guess if it was something back then, it had to have been probably decal related or something because of the print job I was at. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You gave us these...
I'm putting lines together now. I'm typing it all up. Go on. I won't steal your thunder for it, though. Please tell us what it was.
You gave us, there's so many puns you're giving right now, and you don't mean to, like lions and thunder. You gave us these like giant size decals of the Thundercats logo.
Mm-hmm. That makes perfect sense.
And I still have them somewhere because I wasn't going to put them on our cars. And if I had, they'd be gone because we don't have those. We don't have those cars anymore. Right. But I've got them somewhere. I don't know if do you think they'd still be good after 10 years of not having been peeled off? Like, does that, you worked in decals. So do you know, like, does that sticky stuff last 10 years? Not years? Okay, good.
I think that like, so long as the condition they were kept, like if they were kept flat and like away from the sun and stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because we come across them every like move or every time
I'm pretty sure that they're in like a box with posters and like books and frames stuff. And stuff in our storage unit somewhere.
So it's so funny you didn't even remember that that's what it was, but that's another major reason why you're on this episode.
Well, cool. Then we can get into why that is later when it comes into like obviously like what's your fascination with it? You know, this kids show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can just get into that. So what was honestly, like that's what you're here for. What was your connection to Thundercats growing up?
So we had like, I was right in the sweet spot for when, you know, it was on TV. And I don't know if you saw on Hulu, they're like 60 episodes for season 1 or something insane.
Right.
Because I kept scrolling like, oh, surely it can't get past like 24 or something. And no, there's a lot more than that. So I'm either they didn't know how seasons worked back then.
Right.
Or
I think
episodes have just been mating and creating new ones, which I have a theory for later.
I think the real reason to chop down the joke but is like a lot of those 80s cartoons, and I think even cartoons today, like on Cartoon Network, the first season is always like a giant load of episodes, and then they slow down later on because basically they want a ton of episodes so they can fill daily spots, because like Thundercats was a daily TV show, not even a weekly TV show, so they needed 60 episodes. If you only had 24, then you'd be done with it after a month. So they would have these massive first run seasons, and then they would do like half of that the next season because they never knew when they were going to get canceled. So they wouldn't do quite as many as the first season.
Okay, that's interesting. It destroys my theory, but no, very
Here we go, Danny.
Sorry.
No, my theory was ridiculous. It was purely for a joke, but this was probably my first, between this and He-Man, or my first and earliest links to something that is like nostalgia. So when, you know, you see it now, you're like, oh God, I remember like all the fond memories of that. You block out the bad stuff back then, but like it was representative of a lot of the earliest goodest times.
So what are your favorite memories from Thundercats then?
So we had a cassette tape, because back, how TV was back then. It's like when you caught the new ones, awesome. But when those were off the air, that was it. Like, I don't even think it was syndicated anywhere else that I can remember anyway back then. So we had a cassette tape that had 2 episodes on it. I don't ever remember the second episode, but I remember the crap out of the first one, and it was easily one of the best ones. And we watched that ad nauseum. Like, I'm sure my parents know every line and image of that one as well, because we watched it so many times.
Was it the first episode, or was it just the first episode? Okay, it was just the first one.
Yeah, there were 2 episodes on a tape, and like it was, and I even remembered the title of it, so I could find it real easy after watching the first 2 episodes and being like, "Wow, all right." And and then like, let me go to the one I think I remember is cool, and I watched that one, and I'm like, yeah, this one's where Mum Ra's being more of a mad scientist. And like, just he's so it's his character is so fascinating to me.
And it's so you mentioned you also liked He-Man, because I would always get He-Man and Thundercats mixed up, because it's not even like the whole show is the same, but one you have a mummy, the other you have a skeleton, and in both shows you have a scaredy cat sidekick. Yep. Even though one of them transforms into Battle Cat, but that's neither here nor there. It's like, and
he doesn't spend too much time as Battle Cat,
right? So I would always mix those up, and then when Jessica and I watched the first 3 episodes of the series overall, and we're like, there's so much. They're already kind of, I don't know which came first, He-Man or Thundercats, but they're clearly like incestuous with each other in some way, with all these elements that are clearly copying each other. And then Thundercats has so much Star Wars in it. I had no idea as a kid. Like, it's all subtle and it's all buried in the fact that they're cat people, but there's so much Star Wars reference in Thundercats. You have Jaga, who's Obi-Wan Kenobi. You have a magic sword. Lion-O is basically Luke without, with the added story element of him aging up suddenly. And then you have literal Ewoks who are robots. Like, it's Star Wars. It's a cat-based Star Wars movie or television show.
I need to hear the argument for, like, I like that it's Thundercats. I like the story you're headed. Uses a lot of these similar elements, but cat people, and like the guy who is who is going to fight that detail to the death, to have that in there. Because one thing it did do, one big thing between, because I love animation, and this is actually where I come the most as an adult, why I like Thundercats still, is that the animation is phenomenal. They do a lot of things that, like, He-Man recycles a ton, right? Like, anytime a character turns around, or runs at the screen for whatever reason, or there's a punch, like, you just see a lot of recycled animation, and that's fine. Budgetary concerns, you got to do 3 trillion episodes for the first season. Makes sense. But Thundercats is not that way. Not a lot is reused. It looks like, there's a lot of unique camera angles, and while it's not always perfect, whenever they did like action scenes and stuff, it was pretty intense, especially considering how detailed the characters were, especially their musculature and their build and everything. Whereas a lot of He-Man was rotoscoped over they had some models, like, you'll notice that like Skeletor and He-Man have like almost the same build, because they use the same guy as art reference. Okay. Like, with their titties are the same size. But that like made it fat, because like there are times where the animation in He-Man is very fluid, because they're like, oh boy, we're going to produce this animation and we're going to use it over and over again. Like when he throws something from a profile perspective.
Right.
Yeah, it's very much, like, it's almost like he threw the workout ball or something, a big sandbag or something, and they'll just put, a tree, a truck, whatever he throws in that particular instance.
Right.
There's not a lot of that in Thundercats, but everyone looks like, everyone's proportions are so good and stuff. And, it's in that respect, I think it's kind of wild.
I was just, when you were comparing these, I was thinking, like, let me put it this way. So He-Man, I had to look it up, but they were by Filmation,
Mhm.
who were kind of that infamous cheap quality animation that was trying to directly compete with Hanna-Barbera. So
Okay.
that's why they both have, I've definitely seen a number of like different YouTube documentaries that talk about this, but I'm trying to look at what else Filmation did. Like they did all of the DC comic shows from the time, like Super Friends and all of the
Mhm.
offshoots. They did a bunch of the Archie and Sabrina shows from the time.
Mhm.
They did the Star Trek, the animated series. They
Yeah.
did the original Ghostbusters with, with the gorilla in the team. They did there's a ton of shows here. There's like shows you like Space Academy, Space Sentinels, Arc 2, like, but they're all Groovy Ghoulies, which Jessica and I like. But this is definitely like, that was a studio known for its recycled animation, because I think it even was a lot of Hanna-Barbera people.
Mhm.
But then Thundercats was done by Rankin Bass,
Mhm.
who are known for the stop motion animation Christmas specials, like that classic stop motion animation Christmas thing that
Mhm.
everyone knows. And then when it's parodied in Elf or television commercials, they're referencing Rankin Bass.
Yeah.
This was, I learned from a YouTube show called Toy Galaxy that I was telling you about before we started.
Mhm.
This was Rankin Bass's first foray into television animation. So they basically, I now I'm extrapolating on what he was saying. I don't know this for certain, but it seems like Rankin Bass comes from stop motion. So they're going to put details into it. They're going to make things more fluid. They're going to spend more time per frame than Filmation would. And they're going to act, and it's their first TV show out. So they're going to like actually put some work into it.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, they would go on to do Silverhawks, which is they even
Right.
borrowed some of the same voice talent, and the
Right.
animation was similar, if not even better in that than it was in Thundercats.
Yeah, I told Jessica a little bit about Silverhawks.
Yeah, Danny was like, "Do you know Silverhawks?" And I'm like, "No."
It was definitely less popular than Thundercats. But I forgot to tell this story in the regular section of the podcast, so I can tell both of you now. I had a bunch of Silverhawks and Thundercats toys when I was a kid. And I remember them being in these special like plastic cubbies. Like that's how my mom sorted my toys. Right? They were almost like the kind of stuff you put flour in, like or cookies. They were like cookie jars, but they were plastic and they were meant for holding toys. And I'm who knows how young. I could be like 3 or I could be 5, but I was very young. And one night I got up and I was just old enough to take myself to the bathroom. So I get up to go to the bathroom and I trip and I fall into these cubbies filled with Silverhawks toys. And my parents come running, and it's like 2 a.m. It's 2 a.m. They come running, like, "Oh my gosh, you okay? You okay?" And I'm actually being a big boy about it. I'm like, "No, I'm all right. I just fell down." I'm sure that wasn't my tone of voice. I was a little boy, but in my mind, I'm like, "No, it's okay. I just fell down." But I really was like, not, I was like, "It's okay, it's okay." And then they were like, "Okay, all right, well." And then I go to the bathroom, and then they go back to bed, and I'm like, damn, I was a little kid. I'm like, damn, I just gave up an opportunity for like comfort. Like, what's wrong with me? I just gave up an opportunity for them to like be like, "Oh, you're okay," And I was just shrugged it off and tried to be a man at that moment. So my solution to that was when I went back into my room to purposely fall back over the toys. So my parents would come back in, and this time they could comfort me, but this time they come in and they're like, "Okay, we know, go to sleep." And I was like, how did this not work?
Boiled.
I know. So that's my biggest memory of the Silverhawks. Until Toonami started playing them again in the late 90s. And I'm like, oh, they were called the Silverhawks. I didn't even remember what they were called until they were back on Toonami, like post Dragon Ball Z, when Toonami was looking for anything that could build up a cult. The old Thundercats was definitely played on Cartoon Network in the late 90s as like a nostalgia thing for Toonami as well.
Yeah, just before Dragon Ball Z, because that's when I would leave the room, is when Dragon Ball came up.
Right, you hate Dragon Ball, so we'll do
it's not that I hate it. We'll save that for the Dragon Ball episode.
Yeah,
because Relient K did a song for them too, right?
Exactly. So so tell us what you thought of the Relient K song, because we had you listen to that as well.
So of course, not knowing, having anything, I had no idea what was going to come. I thought it was as far as, a lot of things, I'm surprised at how many things are like ready to like, is this a family podcast? Can I say shit?
You can.
Okay.
We'll bleep we bleep it as a joke now. We
Oh,
weren't
okay.
sure what Relient K fans would want us to swear or not, so we just didn't. And then we started swearing, and then we started bleeping it as a joke.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, you never know when someone's gonna either, it's more often than not someone's gonna shit on the Thundercats, and so it was a pleasant surprise to hear this song, and it didn't. If it did, I missed it because it felt like it felt more like a nice homage to it rather than anything else, and it had a nice little punk swing to it. I liked it.
Good. That's nice.
Overall fair experience.
Yeah.
We'll listen again.
Oh, good. Any other? What do you think of the Thundercats logo? Because we were talking about how, and you know what? We don't really know all of your background as far as the art that you do. You're super talented, and I connected you with Magnified Pod because I knew you could directly copy Doug TeNaples style, and that's what they wanted for their second season. And then you do all this other stuff as well, and you've been in printing, and you do all kinds of great artwork. So you were talking to me about how the Thundercats logo is like a perfect logo, and now I was going to ask you about that, but now I'm like, well, can you give us some, because we don't even know it, can you give us some background on your art background?
Well, I was so in high school I enjoyed art. Like that was the one class I knew I was signing up for every single year, and everything else was kind of like, well, what's the furthest I can go, I guess, because everyone, you want college credits or whatever. High school's dumb. But so from there I found that I could get into computer illustration and everything that could do, and then all right, how can I turn this into money? They have this thing called graphic design. It's really just Photoshop with words, and that kind of sprang into teaching myself painfully what graphic design is for many years. But it's that's where most of that work. So I'm mostly self-taught, because everyone asks, when I'm in graphic design, did you go to school for that? No, I did not. I went to film school. Oh yeah, I'm like, yeah, I know. So but I did get fascinated with the communication element of graphic design, and so where that ties into Thundercats with this is that the logo for the show outclasses the show entirely. It's like logo is too good for that show.
Right.
And I'm so glad they put it everywhere, because it deserves to be. It's just, it communicates so much, and what it is, I don't know, but it is ferocious and very in your face. And kudos to, I should know who designed it and created it the first time through, but I do not.
Right.
And so when I started making the stickers, we were printing on really expensive material at work at the time, because we did emergency vehicles, and there's always room to put extra stuff, because that material is so expensive by the square inch almost, that when you're in cents per square inch, that's expensive. That stuff was just glorious when you hit it with the light. It's reflective material. You guys got it on the good stuff. And there were these spots where I'm like, God, I could just put something here, so much wasted space. And so I went back and got the screen grab from the intro, where it's front and center, and does that really cool morph that I can't even explain. I've looked at it so many times. I've seen the intro to the show so many times.
Mm-hmm.
I took a screen grab of the logo, vector traced it in Illustrator, and had it to where I had both a cutout version and the printout version. I had it I want to say 8-inch, 6-inch, and 4-inch decals. And so I just, anytime there was a job that had a bunch of blank space, I just stuffed them in there to cut them out later.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a whole stack of those bad boys, and I was giving them to people that was like, oh, do you remember this? Some who knows? My parents had a whole bunch, and they had one on every car for years. It was great. Easy to pick them out of a parking lot.
It is a great logo. It really is when you look at it. And compared to the rest of the show's sort of design, which is a lot more quirky. It's very mature.
I hear that logo. You know what I mean? It's
right.
But also that was back in the day where theme songs and stuff were just so bitchin'. Between the He-Man intro, I know it's cheesy, but I've listened to it numerous times with the narration and everything. That's probably a lot of nostalgia talking, but I don't know, just the way it's composed, the instrumental to it and everything. And Thundercats is the same, even if the song is less complicated even than He-Man's somehow.
Right.
Still a jam.
The Thundercats theme song is also like, I feel like one of the, not the theme sequence, is one of the first ones where the theme animation almost matches up to the show.
Yeah.
Because you were even saying like there was so much work put into the show. And of course there's not as much, because those theme sequences in 80s cartoons would always be sent off to like the highest class Asian studio to animate, so that like you grab the kids with like basically theatrical level theme song that you only paid for like a minute and a half worth of it, and then you go into your Filmation cheap animation for the rest of the show. But Thundercats, the theme sequence and the show were almost matched up, whereas other things weren't. And I guess like Ninja Turtles, which came just a hair later, that also was kind of almost the same, because that was also theatrical level theme sequence, and the animation was also pretty good on Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, it's because it's what they call on model. Like everything looks, it's very the look is consistent from the super flashy awesome intro into the show.
Right.
Like it's not one-to-one all the time, but like, you know, as far as like mouth lining up to expressions and stuff like that. But
yeah,
the animation on the ones, the nice, the well-produced one, the animation's excellent.
And one other thing I learned researching the show that we didn't bring up earlier in the episode is that there were only 6 voice actors for the whole show.
Yep.
Yeah, and then they hired 2 more in the last season. But that was it. They had 6 people doing every voice, which is a little easier because they are on like a battle planet, so it's like, you know, characters only exist as they are needed. But still, that's amazing that 6 people did all those voices.
Yeah, it shows a good range. I want to say the only one that I could really notice was the guy that does Tigra. He's also Monkey Man, I want to say his name was. Like that guy's voice is easy to pick out. Everyone else is a little tough for me, at least in the ones I saw recently.
So did you have any notes on the rewatch of different, because we watched the first 3 episodes, and then I watched the first episode of the 2011 show, which is basically Thundercats The Last Airbender. And then I watched a 6-minute cut down of the Thundercats Roar pilot, which I also sent to you.
Which I did watch.
Yeah. Oh, good.
I did muscle the whole thing.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that yet, but basically Thundercats in the last 2 years was redone as a wacky schmackety cartoon for kids with the bean mouth and the Cal art style. And I saw one review, it's like, blame Steven Universe for this. I'm like, Steven Universe wasn't this wacky. I think what actually you have to blame for this is Teen Titans Go and the World of Gumball, the exciting World of Gumball, or the wonderful World of Gumball, or whatever it's called. Like those are like more wacky, like expressive, over the top cartoons with like cartoon physics and stuff. And those were popular. So then they thought they could do it with Thundercats as well.
Yeah, I think that's where the flaw is like, you know, the Amazing World of Gumball, the animation in that is fantastic because it does not settle on a single, like it doesn't even settle on a medium. You know, there's 3D in there sometimes with 2D characters. I won't get into my whole thing with Gumball, but like that was, you know, those are original characters being lunatics. Who thought, you know, what this would go well with? Do you guys remember that cartoon from the 80s that like was fairly serious but just fantasy enough to like, you know, sell the muscular toys and everyone looked really cool and have one of like the coolest bad guys in all of 80s cartoons? Like, let's make that as stupid as fucking possible. And then, you know, pretend like everyone should love it. That's what instantly made me enraged about it when it came out. But when I gave it this chance, when you sent me the link, like I was like, fine, let's go. So I hated the intro, but because like, you know, you can't top the original even if you tried. But I did like, so in the show, they almost recreate some of the old show musical themes, like exactly, which is pretty cool because that's a big part of nostalgia too. So I'm like, they were either milking it or they identified a good thing and recreated it, because a lot of musical parts of Thundercats like were reused a lot, especially in like little bits where it's like Thundercats are on the loose, Like they'll say that once sometimes, and like, oh, okay, that's all part of the song they're going to use for that. All right, they recreated a bunch of that and used that tastefully, which I thought was kind of neat. So that there was like a love for it, but then I guess there was also just some deep rooted hate in why they would do this to the show. I will note the improvement to Snarf, because watching this again as an adult, Snarf is insufferable, and every time he's either anytime he's mentioned on screen, off screen, and I can hear him, ouch, it hurts a lot.
I noticed Snarf doesn't talk in any of the reboots. He doesn't talk in the 2011 show, and he doesn't talk on Thundercats Roar. He didn't talk in at least he didn't talk in the one episode I watched. So somehow, like later on, they were like, "Yeah, Snarf doesn't talk anymore."
Yeah. It's like if there's ever like the He-Man thing that's coming up on Netflix, let's see what they do with Orko. You know, it's very similar. Like, shut up,
right?
Like, please, that was a bad idea then. So yeah, that was probably the biggest improvement. But one of my favorite parts of the original show that I guess wasn't done as well in the 2011 series is that like just the original performance and animation of Mum-Ra is still not topped yet by a lot of things.
I don't even think I saw a clip of Mum-Ra from the 2011 show yet, because I only watched the first episode.
Right. Yeah. He shows up later, and like his, one of his things that I remember so strong from I used to like do it in the car. I was like working on when I was working on voice acting stuff. I was like actually working on an impression of Lino because it's silly. And my impression of Mum-Ra, having them talk back and forth because I was alone in the car and no one could hear me. Mum-Ra's voice in his performance is something that's so terrifying, and I remembered so vividly that his like summoning to become Mum-Ra and his laugh after all of that, with the music cue and everything, was always something that was very striking and has a presence to this day. The one episode that I watched was called Spitting Image, which is where I even learned that term, and I was like 5. Like, what does that mean? And it just never left my brain. But it's the one where he makes a clone of Panthro, and he goes, and the whole plan is to get the surrounding people that they've made their friends to go and to discredit the Thundercats by having Panthro, that one, go and beat everything, like destroy the town's boats and set them on fire and shit. And he does it by like making a clone after having him kidnapped. It's a very interesting plan. It's very mad scientist that like there are 2 parts to the whole thing. It's crazy. It's nonsensical in the best way. He drops like Panthro into a chasm, and that was another thing I liked about the show too. There was a creativity about like what Third Earth was. There's this infinite chasm that every 30 seconds kind of shoots like plasma out of it. There's a forest made entirely of iron, which is like a perpetual thunderstorm, like lightning storm that's dangerous to go into. And all of these are like, God, this is like good stuff to pull from to if they were ever going to do something more with it, which I don't know if they ever did with the 2011 one, but
apparently it was canceled after the first season, even though they had seasons 2 and 3 mapped out. And then the live action film is supposedly been in work. Warner Brothers bought the whole series. I found this all out because I researched it. All I did was read the Wikipedia and watch 2
No. I just say, I've heard of like there's been rumbles of a live action for like 20 years now.
I'm just laughing at the thought of a live action.
We didn't get to it, but I did find one person basically made their vision board for what the live action Thundercats movie would be, set to the Relient K song. And then when they basically made like side-by-side comparisons of everyone they were casting in the movie. And I can't remember everyone. There was like Ryan Gosling was in there. And this is old enough that like Elle Fanning was going to be Kat or Kit or whichever one's the female one. So this is like an older one. Like Elle Fanning couldn't play her anymore unless it's like CGI, I guess. But yeah, it was pretty funny. And multiple people have taken like fan works and existing 3D CGI elements and made fake trailers for the live action movie. But supposedly because of HBO Max, the movie is, because it's owned by Warner Brothers now, like Mortal Kombat, they want to like try to push Thundercats as the next possible franchise. If you go on the Wikipedia, it says that the live action Thundercats movie is really in the works since 2018. Now, who knows? But
If they got Ryan Gosling to play Snarf, I'd see it. At least he would shut the up.
So Matt, did you have your sexual awakening to Chitara?
I don't know if it was a sexual awakening. It's one of those things that like it gets so blurry. Like, was it always there? But it's as an adult, you're like, when you watch it again, you're like, how did they get away with that?
Yeah.
But also too, kudos to them. Fantastic.
Right.
Good job. Good job, whoever did that.
I found this video between when we recorded the main portion of the episode and now. I found this video where somebody goes through and tries to systematically determine which kind of cat everyone is, because it's apparently not as like biologically sound as it's supposed to be, or as people think it is. Like, who's supposed to be a panther and who's supposed to be a lion and who's supposed to be a cheetah, and like it's not. I guess all the actual existing evidence that we see in the characters doesn't hold up to necessarily everything, and I'm like, I'm not watching this whole 17-minute video. And
it seems pretty spelled out to me.
Right. Well, it came up because we talked about it last night, because there's a demo to the Relient K song.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, he says that Chitara wore leopard skins, but then they change it to cheetah skins in the final album version. And it's like, well, maybe they are leopard skins, legally speaking, like design wise. And in the original demo, they didn't want to cheat the reality of it. But then in the final album version, they're like, well, people are going to get confused if we say leopard, so we just got to say cheetah.
Well, one of the things I remember from the design of Chitara, not that I've studied it that intently, is that the pattern on her face is reminiscent of so in a cheetah, it's got like the black surrounding their eyes. It's fairly reminiscent of that too.
Okay.
I've looked up, the behind the scenes. There's a Facebook thing that I follow that's a lot of like character design stuff. So you get to see the behind the scenes like art drops, the models and stuff that they went from, and so like everyone was pretty well designed. Like there's a lot of attention to detail went to it, even though there's not that much in the costume department for a lot of them. There's enough to chew on. And I always thought it very impressive. It's one thing like G.I. Joe and stuff where everyone's got like these, the clothes, when a character has clothes, it's easy to like kind of not easier to manipulate, but like where a shirt can be a box instead of like the human chest all the time. It's just more lines to draw, and something that if you mess it up, like, you messed it up. Whereas like a shirt is like, oh, it's a shirt, draw it for 4 different frames. And as long as it looks somewhat like a shirt, you're fine. But Chitara, for instance, who is like just the nude female form without any, like everyone, like all of the Thundercats are so well drawn, like 80% of the time, that's something that as an artist that I look at, and it's just they nail it a lot more than I thought they would. And it doesn't always, and not like He-Man, where it is very much rotoscoped over, which is. It's not cheating if it looks good. Like, no one cares. It very much doesn't look like it was rotoscoped in Thundercats. And so like some real artists had their hand in getting that done. And so I appreciate that a lot.
That's like super fascinating. I'm happy that we had you on this episode, because like I would not even think to talk about the art stuff.
That's one of the more adult justifications I have for the show. So I'm like, oh yeah, Thundercats is awesome. And like, naturally everyone's like, so Chitara, right? And like, nah, I didn't even think about that until just now. It is fascinating how they got that in there, but especially like watching the first episode too. I'm like, oh, I don't remember them being so naked.
Yeah.
And then it's like, here are some clothes, and it's like, oh, everyone gets clothes and weapons and knows how to use them, and the clothes kind of don't do anything except for Panthro. Panthro's clothes are the only things that come into handy later. But it's another thing is they kind of did a lot with what they had back then, especially for the design of the characters and stuff. Like, there are a bunch of little things that I think were better than expected for the show, even if watching it, the second episode was painful. The first one was like, all right, origin pilot, you get a pass, right? But boy, that second episode was tough. Like, where they're like fighting Mumra in the woods or something. No.
Yeah, and then Mumra
Yeah.
just screams for 25 minutes looking into
Yeah.
the reflection of the.
Ah! And it flies away. Like, that did it, I guess. And so they never once thought that, like, carry mirrors around, you know, like, bam, that there's, and I don't even know if that weakness is ever brought up again. I didn't investigate that hard. I'm like, all right, I got to go to the one I remember that's cool. But yeah, so I didn't see the third one, but the second one was rough. And then there was another one I watched that was also, it was hilarious because I read in the description for the episode that Mumra disguises himself as one of the little bear people.
Awesome! I gotta watch that.
It's so funny. Yeah, he disguises himself as a bear person. He's a trickster, Mumra. You know, where like because I do like in the second episode where he's like, "I'll go get the sword," and then when the three mutants are like, "Oh, you came back? Did you do it? Did you get it?" And he just silently, it's the animation in reverse of him coming out of his thing and going. It's like, I noticed that too. It's like, it's just it translates as him shamefully going back into his hole and not explaining that why he didn't get it, while they're all like, "Ha ha, told you so." I'm like, wow, what is happening right now? Who's in charge here, Mumra? Get your shit straight. And him like going to all these depths to like, "I'm going to transform into one of the little bear things." Like, that was because also too, when you watch that episode, it is fantastic how he does the whole like ancient spirits of evil, does his whole thing, and then he's Mumra and he's huge, and then he's like, "All right, ancient spirits of evil again, turn me into one of those little bears," and then they do it. And he's like, "Ha ha, yes, they'll never know." I'm like, oh my God, this is fantastic. And the rest just happens. I don't remember what happens that much after that. But like he just does these little looks and winks into the camera with his red eyes that he's a demon.
You
That one's
guys
worth
know
watching.
what's going on.
Yeah. It's very funny. And there's another time he just disguises himself as things that he becomes like so petty, where I remember him being so terrifying. I think it's because his mouth is perpetually wet with this white goo.
Stop it, you're scaring me.
Wait, so do they just stay on that same planet, or do they ever leave and go to other planets?
I think in season 2 they leave. Like they found a new Thundera or something. But don't quote me on that. Like, I feel awful that you brought me on as the Thundercats expert.
Yeah, I don't remember most anything past the first 3 or 4 episodes, because we had the collection of the pilot of the first few episodes on a retail sold tape when I was a kid, and I watched that a ton. And I watched the show as a kid, but I just didn't memorize or they didn't burn into my DNA any other episode. Whereas I can quote you, or I can explain a dozen Ninja Turtles episodes that I haven't seen since then, but I can't really explain many other Thundercats episodes.
I only ask because I love just like the design and everything when they're on the spaceship. And so then once they got to the planet, my interest just started steadily declining. By the time we were in like episode 2 and 3, like I was just not paying attention at all.
I finally got Jessica into anime through the most unlikely form, which is like the cheapest OVA anime of the 80s. Like Jessica doesn't want to watch like the, well-loved animes of the 90s or even more recently. Like she wants to watch like a really cheap, crappy anime that's literally forgotten that company is totally dissolved and it will never be issued on video again. And it's just on YouTube and no copyright holder is contesting it. So that animation cheap anime style is very similar to 80s American animation, because it was all the same. It was all a lot of the same studios working on those things.
Yes, what Pacific Animation Corporation or something like that. I forget what the animation company was, but they were churning them out back then. But like, good, compare that to a lot of American animation back then and even today, like the Teen Titans Go,
right?
And like, not to slam them as artists or whatever, there's an audience for everything. I just thought the combination of the two, like someone put these ideas together, like no one would remember. It's like, we're not dead yet,
right?
And neither are you. Like, how can you say you love this and create that? I'm sure it's fine for children. there's no room in that show for like, and not even for the show that they created originally for Thundercats, for that logo to be all over the place. That logo's like, it's like heavy metal.
Right.
Yeah. Heavy metal's great.
Yeah. I would love like something like, and we're talking about heavy metal, like the magazine and everything, right?
Yeah.
Well, Jessica's talking about the movie.
I mean, I did like the movie though. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like that kind of treatment to Thundercats might be something fascinating. Maybe even using the sword for once, which is also a fascinating rule of cartoons back then, that even He-Man didn't use his sword unless it was to like hit a building or hit a tree or hit.
Oh, right.
You know, he never even shot, like it never cut anything as far as I remember. It had lasers that would shoot out of it to like stun people or hurt them or hit them, never cause pain. It was a weird rule back then with cartoons that are not weird, like you're gonna have fantasy violence. You also had
sorry. I was just gonna basically say what you were saying.
The fantasy violence was like no death and everything else, and you had to have like a very plain moral at the end.
Right.
You know, like don't steal or lie. You know, but that's 2 episodes. You can't do them both in one. That'd be confusing.
And they didn't want like direct contact violence.
Yeah.
There was the He-Man documentary that Adam Goldberg produced that I watched, and I've seen it in a number of other places. Anytime Bruce Timm from Batman the Animated Series and Paul Dini are talking about, Paul Dini, not Bruce Timm. Anytime Paul Dini is in a documentary talking about animation and how it led up to him working on Batman the Animated Series, the 80s was this bizarre confluence of 2 completely conflicting ideas where one, the Reagan administration, and this is all true, the Reagan administration lifted the laws or the sanctions or whatever that said you couldn't directly market to children. Like we had those laws, or you could market to children, but in the way in which you couldn't, like, basically they lifted some sort of children advertising laws that opened the door to all of those amazing toy commercials that were cartoon shows. Like before, you basically had to make a cartoon show and then the advertising was the advertising. But now suddenly the cartoons in the 80s legally could be the advertising themselves and get the kids wanting the toys. So that's allowed. But then at the same time, you have all these networks are super conservative and they are afraid of even the most meager violence and like everyone being okay. They just get in a little scuffle, but now they can't even fight. So it's like these 2 completely conflicting things. It's like openly advertise to children, openly like win their hearts and minds with products, but don't have them fight, which is what they're going to do when they buy the toys anyway. And then it's not until pretty much the 90s and with like a Batman the Animated Series the Warner animation renaissance, I guess, like the television renaissance with like Spielberg coming in and doing and Amblin working on cartoons, that they were actually like, they fought against the networks that were like so staunch on violence and stuff. Yeah. I swear this comes up in a number of Warner Brothers and Batman documentaries and that He-Man documentary that I watch all the time.
Well, it's true. Like the violence in cartoons in America, Japan, that's why anime is awesome.
Right.
In America, like it was so baffling to have something like He-Man should definitely get the heavy metal treatment. It looks like it was born right out of it.
Right.
But then, all the cool shit was edited out. Like, I think that it's truly fascinating to go back and look at that, especially when like the joke I've just come up with now is like, what is my favorite pair of binoculars in TV and movies? And it's the Sword of Omens.
Right. Yeah, in the second episode, he's like, the Sword of Omens is telling me something is coming, and he holds it up to his eyes, and then the mutants appear in front of him, and then he puts it down, and they're there. It's not like it warned him. He could have just been looking at that spot, and he would have seen them.
Did not help in any way.
It didn't help at all.
Danny was getting so mad because, like I said, my interest totally declining as we progress. So I was like, oh, I thought it was a sword. Why it looks like a dagger? Is it just a dagger? And Danny's like, it grows, Jessica. Like,
she wasn't watching the episode. He explained it. He used it in the first episode.
You rub it like this, Lionel.
Yeah.
I was like, but he's like running towards the mutants with it as a dagger. Like, I don't understand. Do you think he should extend it at that point?
I'm sure you could still fuck some people up with it, with the Sword of Omens in its smaller mode.
Yeah, like the Sword of Omens fascinates me as an adult too, because there's a lot of action potential for a sword that doesn't know how long it is, especially when you get to the end of the movie where it's like, oh, I need Sword of Omens to be the best it's ever been, and then bam, 20 feet long. Fuck you. It slices through everything, like, because it never ever did in the show. Like that's all fascinating to me.
Right.
I wish I'd have watched those episodes with you guys, because as I was watching them on my own, I'm like, oh my God, the commentary for this would be fantastic. There's a lot of logic leaps. And Snarf would not shut the hell up.
Well, thank you very much for joining the podcast.
It's hard. Did we cover everything?
I think we covered everything. I think
Yeah.
we got it. Thank you so much. It's always very weird. You're like the second or third personal friend that we've had on the podcast. And it's like, I gotta be like, thank you so much, Matt Kiernan.
Thank you for coming on.
Sure, no, it's great to know where I rank.
Yeah.
Same.
So it's so weird because you're our friend, but honestly, like give your plugs and let everyone know where to check you out and stuff like that.
Okay. I guess just Instagram is the only thing to plug, because the website is updated as I get to it. But at Heavy Ordnance Studios with underscores in between. And then from there, I think I have links to like photography, and then the Get a Ride social thing for don't drink and drive anybody. There's so many other options. But yeah, that's it. Yep.
Great.
I wasn't ready for plugs.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I should have given you a heads up that we were ending. Well, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. It's
Yep.
great talking to you.